coming in attendance?
I believe so, but
Voting has started.
Alrighty, thank you. All right, so I would like to call the September 24th, 2024 regular meeting of the Bethel Inland Wetlands Commission to order. Time is 7:01 p.m. It is the 23rd. Why? Well, you gave me the paper that says the 24th.
Oh,
Touche.
I'm going to pass the buck and say that was
Places
Dave's fault.
blame elsewhere.
I did. I just deflected all of that. All right, I'd like to start with some introductions. So my name is Danielle Monroe. I'm the commission chair.
Nico Jordan, vice chair.
Pat Fairford, alternate.
Kevin Seaman, and the Wetlands Commissioner.
And digitally, we have Jay. Can you unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Yep.
Please? Thank
Jay Oldham, alternate.
Thank you. All right. So it looks like we are missing one commission member. So I would like to go ahead and seat Jay.
we're
We're
missing.
missing two?
Yes,
Right, we
we're
are missing two. That is
Improta
correct.
and
And
Laura
Laura.
Ferguson.
All right. Can I go ahead and seat Jay for Paul? Amanda, did you get that? Yep. And can I go ahead and seat Pat, please, for Laura? Okay. Dave, are there any amendments to the agenda or unlisted items that we need to add?
Yes, thank you for asking, Madam Chair. The one amendment would be under agent report. I would ask that the commission add 7 Rockwell Road. I have an update for them.
All right, I believe that I would like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to include 7 Rockwell Road under the staff report.
Motion made. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Well, I guess we could just do a vote. Jay, are you in favor?
Yes.
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 All right, motion carries. So we have amended the agenda. All right, old business, 107 Plum Trees Road.
I will keep this short and sweet. I met with the property owner, Audrey Febreau, 107 Plum Trees Road, a few days after the flooding event that we had on August 18th. It's a work in progress in terms of the permitting process, but she is still keeping contact with me. She does want to rectify the damages that were incurred as a result of the storm. She's very eager to work with me on the appropriate process to be in compliance. I imagine I'll have a more in-depth update for you at the commission's next meeting on October 28th.
Thank you.
Okay.
I missed my opportunity. Can I read in the technology statement now?
Yes, yes.
We've been waiting for this moment. Are we ready for the
We're ready.
technology statement? Okay. So to all elected and appointed boards and commissions, the FOI meeting policy that we need to adhere to while the meeting is in session, following protocols should be followed. Personal devices should not be used to communicate through any means, including text messages, emails, instant messages, social media posts, or conversation. An exception will be made if the device is being used as part of the meeting session, i.e. a member is participating in the meeting via phone conference. If there is a need to communicate regarding personal business during the meeting, the member should excuse himself or herself from the meeting and exit the meeting room or request the chair to move for a meeting recess. Any conversations by members or questions should be addressed to and through the chair. Talking, asking another member a question, or whispering any comments to another member should not take place. Okay? So thank you all very much. All right, then we can proceed with new business.
That's correct.
We have number 9 Putnam Park Road, fill 2x2 area of possible poorly drained soils at location of an old above ground pool. I believe we have the applicant here present tonight, Mr. Draper.
Yes, yes, I am.
Would you like to make a brief presentation to the
No,
commission?
Tim Draper, 48 Ampaddy's Lane West. I'm going to leave it up to my attorney, Neil Marcus, and also my 2 experts, Steve Trinkus, my engineer, and Jim McManus, my soil scientist.
Right, we're all in attendance.
Madam Chair, Neil Marcus remotely on behalf of 9 Putnam Park Road. And I'm going to be very, very brief. This matter is a phase of an application that's before the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve a small multifamily project on Putnam Park Road under 8-30G. When we were before the Planning and Zoning Commission, they determined two reasons to deny the application, and one is that the matter had not been reviewed or submitted to your commission. Now, the reason that they suggested that we submit to inland wetlands was based on a site plan, which they rejected because of what they believed was incomplete, inadequate septic testing and determination of groundwater conditions where the proposed septic system is going to be built. Rolling forward, that decision is on appeal, but under the act, we have submitted an amendment, and the amended site plan has different impacts as it applies to inland wetlands. So we're here still on the basically action of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but what Steve Trinkus and Jim McManus will talk about tonight is slightly different from what the Planning and Zoning Commission has heard. Tomorrow night, P&Z will hear the revisions that have been submitted. So that's just the background. I'm going to ask Steve and Jim to explain the site plan as now proposed as it impacts any regulated activities with respect to inland wetlands, water courses, and any upland review. Steve, can you do that?
Yeah, this is Steve Trinkus, professional engineer representing Mr. Draper. I think Jim should just describe this area first, and then I'll talk about the rest of it.
Okay, Jim McManus, certified professional soil scientist, Inland Wetland Consulting Services, offices in Newtown. I originally visited the site back in May, and then I was on the site again last week. Last week was for something a little bit different. It was really for tomorrow night's meeting, but anyways, it doesn't really matter because I looked at it again, this area. And this area is a small little depressional area out in the north. I guess that'd be the northeastern part of the site. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And it appears to be an old pool that was there that's been gone for quite a while. I mean, we see the metal. I saw something that looked like a liner. I would call it as a liner. Anyways, there's a small little depressional area, and I looked at that, and I didn't come to the conclusion. I wrote a letter back in dated June 3rd that came to the conclusion that the small depression was man-made and it does not qualify as a regulated wetland area. So that was my final conclusion back then. So I know it holds water, but it's a depressional area in uplands, you know. So that was my conclusion back in June, and it still holds today.
Jim, I'm sorry, can I interrupt a second?
Sure.
We're talking about a 2 foot by 2 foot area?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Tim Draper, the
We're
applicant,
talking pool.
there was an old pool there, and where the reviewing engineer for the town of Bethel, Rod Ritchie, basically said the supposed pool, so he actually called the applicant a liar in the planning and zoning meeting. I just want to get that clear and on record.
Okay.
All right. It was a pool that when we were clearing out all the brush, we took all the garbage, in which I've said this multiple times in the planning and zoning commission meetings, over 4 dumpster fulls of garbage off of that property, and that was part of it. And there's still some parts of the pool there. Not a lot, but there's still some parts. There was a pool there, and everybody knows an in-ground pool, an above-ground pool always has that depression in the middle, and that's where the water's sitting.
Okay.
It is about the size of the chair you're sitting in, Pat.
I just want to make sure it wasn't a typo of 20 by 20 when I'm hearing.
No. Hey, Pat, the depression is bigger than 2 by 2. It's
Okay.
just, it goes down into a little bowl that's about 2 by 2.
I'm enough. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now, this is Steve Trinkus. Yeah, as Jim pointed out, the area of the former in-ground pool is larger, but the area of possibly poorly drained soils is literally that, Pat. It's 2 foot by 2 foot. So the application is to fill in that area plus the rest of the hole, which would be in your upland review area, it's a total of 31 cubic yards of material. A third of a yard would be used to fill the 2x2 wetland, and the balance of that 30 and a third yards would basically fill in the depression to make it level with the surrounding ground. There is a silt fence shown downhill of the depressed area that we put in before placing the fill. We'd place the fill, we'd seed it, and that's it.
Okay, we do.
Hey,
This
David.
is what was
My
submitted.
wife's trying to get online and she can't get on.
I just asked, I see Nico using.
I do not see anyone in the waiting room.
Okay, she just texted me.
This is the site plan sheet that was submitted as part of this application.
Dave, while we're looking at the map, and maybe this is a question for Mr. McManus, but I want to make sure that I have it correct. When I was reviewing the materials for tonight, the P and Z board made reference of Mr. McManus saying that it was, and then that it wasn't, and then that it was.
So the submissions that you have, or the submissions that were made to Mr. McManus, I will bring them up on the screen so everyone can see them. They were in the Google Drive for tonight's meeting.
Yep.
Now, Madam Chair, I have personally never said that the area is well.
Okay.
I've actually never been in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission yet. And this is my first time in front of you folks for this particular one, and I haven't said anything other than what it says in my June 3rd letter, which you have up on the screen right now.
Yep. Thanks. I'm just trying to figure out where I read that so we can get it clarified for the record, because unless I am misremembering.
So this was a document that was submitted that Mr. McManus is indicating on June 3rd regarding a site investigation that he made. I will pause it here for the commission to read. I apologize, it's a bit small on the screen. I don't know if it's any easier to see it that way. Okay. And then pursuant to these comments being submitted, there were response comments that were offered by a soil scientist from SLR and a engineer from SLR, the town's consultants. And in response to that, Mr. McManus provided an email that I will bring up on the screen right now. If everybody can see this email. Okay. And this email, which was sent the following evening on June 4th, he states, quote, "However, within this depression, there is a very small area of poorly drained soils, i.e. regulated wetland soil, within the bottommost part of the depression." End quote.
Right. And something of that small that I could literally step over, in 35 years, I've never flagged anything that small. Would be considered what we say in the soil science world as an inclusion. Poorly drained inclusion. It's extremely small. It's insignificant. I can step over it. I've never flagged anything that small. And I've flagged a lot of wetlands in a lot of states. So not just in Bethel. I've been from Maine to Florida, as far west as Minnesota, and I never flag anything the size of a chair.
Mr. McManus, was the purpose of your visit to the site to see whether you were going to flag it?
My visit back in June or back in May was to see if this area was indeed a regulated wetland. And I determined it not to be, regardless if I found a hole at the very bottom of this depression as a poorly drained soil, because the rest of the depressional area is not poorly drained, it's moderately well drained. And I found one profile in the bottom of this thing that was considered wet. And it was so small that if I could easily jump over something, I don't flag it. And this is a perfect example. Like I said, it would be called an inclusion. Just like we have upland inclusions in wetland areas as well.
And in the information that planning and zoning provided, there was a lot of talk in there about the general poorly drained soils in the area. Did you do any testing on the soils on this particular lot?
Yeah, there's no wetlands on this lot. Other than a very small area, 2 by 2, that I'm not flagging.
By visual inspection, or was there
No,
any?
by what I usually do, my soil auger down to 20 inches, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
I think, Steve Trinkus, I also need to address that. There are no poorly drained soils on this site. The testing that was done on either side of where this in-ground pool was consists of hard pan-based soils where the modeling, which indicates seasonal groundwater, was at least 23 inches below ground and deeper up to 36 inches towards the eastern property line. The health code requires only 18 inches of naturally occurring soil above seasonal groundwater. So these areas are upland soils with a perched water table, which is not uncommon in many parts of Bethel.
Right. And in the world of soil science, that kind of data would indicate to me that's moderately well drained. And we build and put septic systems on moderately well drained soils every day.
I have no questions.
Are they done with the presentation? I have a couple of questions. Mr. McManus, can you state your credentials?
Sure. I have a master's degree from the University of Connecticut in plant and soil scientist. I have over 30 years of experience in soil and natural resource related projects. I have over 4,000 delineations from Maine to Florida, as far west as Minnesota. And I've been in business on my own for 24 years.
All right, and you, as the chairperson said or asked, you looked at this property, surveyed this property, and this is the only, I don't know what to call it, depression that could be poorly drained on the whole property. There's no wetlands on this property in your professional.
Yeah, that's correct. There's no wetlands on the property itself.
Has anyone besides Mr. McManus said there is? Like, do we have anyone from the town that says contradictory to that?
If, without,
So not at this point.
no, I'm trying to just,
Okay.
find the appropriate document to address your question.
I'm happy. This is Chuck Anders. I'm happy to give some further background from the zoning side, sort of following up on Mr. Marcus's presentation.
Attorney Andrews, while I look up the right document.
Okay, certainly. As Mr. Marcus stated, this is there was an application. This is emanating out of an 830G proposal that the applicant submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It was denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission for basically two reasons. One concerned the failure to apply to an Inland Wetlands Commission for certain regulated activities, or the possibility, and the second concerned some the septic, the suitability of the soils and whether the soils have been demonstrated to show that were suitable for a septic. On the wetlands thing, and Mr. Marcus correctly stated that as part of the 830G application, you have an opportunity, the applicant has an opportunity to resubmit an application to planning and zoning and address the issues. And if so, you have additional time, including time after wetlands decides to render the application. So in the decision, which I think Mr. McCollum had stated in the record, I think the Planning and Zoning Commission set forth there were sort of two questions regarding the wetlands issues. One was there was a very small, as Mr. McManus, according to his June 4th follow-up email, there is a very small area of poorly drained soils. I'm quoting that from his email, which is a regulated wetlands soil. If you look at the definition of wetlands in your regulations, it includes poorly drained soils, and they're proposing to fill it. So it's small, but it is which Mr. McManus has identified as a poorly drained soil. And so the thought was, okay, they want to fill a small area of wetlands. They should get wetlands approval to do that. And I understand that's what the applicant is doing here for that. And then the second thing the second issue that came up is that there were there's an off-site intermittent water course. And at least in the initial application, and those were flagged by if you look at the decision, it sort of came up, a neighbor approached this and was concerned about it, so it looked into. So there was the question of whether any activities on this site would be within the 100-foot regulated area and thus be a regulated activity. So the commission, when they denied it, say, hey, you're going to apply to wetlands, please review that, see if that is also a regulated activity. Now they've changed their plan. Maybe it appeared just from the prima facie case that it was, but there have been some changes to the plan, and so maybe it's not. So what I have from the zoning side, they wanted some your commission, because you send reports to zoning whenever there's regulated activities, it wanted to address those two issues. One, would you approve this admittedly small amount of filling for this small wetlands? And is there another regulated activity? Do you have anything proposed that with respect to the offsite wetlands that you would need to get a permit for? And this commission would be the commission properly to address that. The Plain Zoning Commission doesn't decide wetlands things, but those were the two things that we're hoping that the applicant could address before the Wetlands Commission.
And that's why I was trying, and I appreciate that the zoning board, kicked this back to us to review, because they do, hear wetlands and, they don't know the statutes for it. So I understand why it got kicked back. So I have another question, and Dave, you can answer.
Mm-hmm.
When you get an application in to build a house, okay, what is the process if there's wetlands on another adjoining property? Let me try. Reason I'm asking, I've been on the board 20-something years. I only remember one other application where we ever considered neighboring property stream or anything like that, because part of the Wetlands Commission thing is we cannot approve something that increases the flow off or minimizes the quality. So we're not looking at the neighbors, we're looking at what's going off. It should be exactly the same, which wouldn't affect the neighbor. Like I said, there's only been one other application where we've looked at a large water or wetlands next to the property.
I will give you two applications that come to memory. In chronological order, going from most recent to further back.
Okay.
One that you approved either last year or the year before for Jennifer's Way. There was a water course off property, and there were upland review areas that extended onto the property, and there were a portion of the proposed septic system and leaching galleries, as well as some tree clearing, was proposed to take place within that regulated upland review area.
Right.
Another application, 9 Good Hill Road, where there was a off-site vernal pool.
Right.
And the regulated upland review area extended from that vernal pool onto the subject property. And that was also brought to review. By
Good Hill's the one off Nashville, correct?
Nope.
That's a property.
Good Hill's off of it's off of Taylor Avenue. That's the one in the back.
That's the one that's the one I was referring to. That's
Just so the commission knows,
Yep.
that's one of my projects.
Yes, and I'm thinking of the one that you mentioned, the first one,
For Jennifer's Way, that was a single family dwelling.
but we didn't look at the neighbor's wetlands. We looked at the wetlands on the print, which did not include the wetlands.
Yeah.
What I'm
so-
saying
so-
is I understand
so-
we need to consider it, but if that's the case, how come every application we get in front of us doesn't have, are we gonna require now anyone who builds to go on the neighbor's property?
That's,
to look at
that's,
wetlands?
in the instance
That's what we're
for,
opening
in
up
the
here.
instance for 4 Jennifer's Way and for 9 Good Hill Road, the property owners had to acquire approval
Mhm.
from those property owners to access that property and to flag those resources.
Okay.
Which is what they
Okay.
did.
Pat, can I just interject for a second?
That's a,
Chairman? Okay, Tim Draper, 48 Patty's Lane. Start off with, this was an old pool. Wouldn't even consider thinking that it's wetlands, a small spot. The second part is when apparently somebody down in Milwaukee came up and asked about, they had some seeps down on their property. 2 properties away, 2, okay, from our property. The town of Bethel hired SLR to go out there and do it on our tax dollars, to survey somebody else's property for wetlands. I've never heard of that before. And if they want to come and do my property, I'd rather have that than have to pay Mr. McManus to do it, if the town's gonna pay for it. That's why I have an issue. I really don't even understand why I'm even here.
Well, you're here because planning and zoning asked you to come here, so we appreciate you coming and presenting that tonight, and I hope that we can continue to have a respectful dialogue about this.
We
and not
are.
Bring,
But wasn't even considered a wetland. I would have came to, if we thought that was even a issue, an above ground pool, that
noted.
would have been
I don't think
wetlands.
anyone on this commission is
we
accusing
we
you
would
of
we
doing
would have been
something.
No,
here
I-
beforehand.
No one
I
here is suggesting that, Mr.
what
Draper.
I'm getting to, I think was right for the zoning board to send it back to us because of the wetland issue, because my understanding is wetlands supposed to go before zoning because of this. So I can
Mhm.
understand why it came back to us. What I'm asking is, now we have to accept this application.
Well, you have to decide
On which
if,
way.
well, you have to decide if the materials that have been submitted for you constitute a complete application.
Mhm.
And if they do, then you have to decide which review process you would like to subject this application to, which is a site plan review process or a public hearing process.
We also have the option to review this and say, we see no impact on the wetlands through this? Or can we say, this could be handled through the administration?
That's,
If I'm looking, if someone came to me with this today,
Mhm.
and I knew nothing about this project, that's how I'm looking at
Mhm.
it, and they said, we want to build a house here. I know none of the surrounding areas like we would on any, and I'm looking at two.
right. So,
I'll be,
if I may clarify something, Mr. Kirkwood, that plan does not show a house that is proposed.
okay,
It shows a house that exists.
right,
And, the intent would be to, ultimately demolish the house
understood.
and, place other structures on the property.
And I'm looking at it that, I look at it as blank slate. If this just came in like this, I see this, okay, I see this, I would say this could be handled something administratively, because you're putting in a 2-foot depression with a bucket of dirt.
Well,
Okay,
but it potentially
I
has
don't know.
wetland soils within it, which,
a bucket, yeah, but that could, a little thing like that could be handled, in my opinion, administratively. Now, if we're gonna consider the wetlands around, then we accept it to verify that the,
well, we don't have a building
Right.
plan here, so
Okay.
this is not
Yeah.
right,
something that we can.
The,
thank you, that's what, okay.
All right, hey, Pat, hey, McManus here real quick. Even though the statutes don't spell out the size, that the wetland could be the size of your piece of paper on your desk.
Right,
And I wouldn't have flagged this area, even though I found an area of poorly drained soils. I just would call it an inclusion within a dominant upland mapping unit.
Right.
So I wouldn't even recognize it, just so you know. But
to be
in
clear,
the statutes, we don't have any limit to size. But however, I still stand by that. I would just call this a small poorly drained inclusion in an otherwise upland mapping unit.
and to be clear, I think and I want to be clear, I think the zoning board did right saying hearing wetlands, no matter what the size, it has to go back to the wetland committee agent to view. I'm not sure what level of review this needs. That's
Well,
what I think I'm
So,
trying to
so
say.
if I may provide a point
Yep.
of clarification, I believe I found a document that you were asking
Right.
for. The prompt for Mr. McManus's email on June 4th was pursuant to an email from Matthew Sanford, the soil scientist from SLR, who flagged the
All right, hold on. Who's SLR now?
SLR is SLR International Consulting, or a corporation. They are the firm that is contracted by the town to perform engineering
Okay.
related services
In general, overall for the whole town.
for the land use commission.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Yep.
So,
That's
so
what's on there.
Matthew Sanford is a soil scientist
Okay.
from that same firm. And if I may quote his email dated June 4th, 2024, 10:39 a.m., which was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I quote, Dave, SLR provides the following comment on Jim McManus's soil scientist letter dated June 3rd, 2024 for the reference subject project. The letter does not mention whether Mr. McManus extracted any soil cores from the depressional area mentioned in his letter. From the photos that were attached to his letter, the depressional feature appears to have approximately 2 feet of standing water at wetter portions of the year. There is clear stain lines on the trunks of the trees and dark, i.e. black, colored leaves within the depression. It looks like there is some surface water still present in the photo. SLR recommends that the soil scientists provide photo documentation and locations of the soil cores that were completed within the depressional feature, along with the description of the soil cores, color, chroma, and value, to further demonstrate that the depressional feature does not have poorly or very poorly drained soils per state regulations, and to complete the zoning permit application record.
So,
Right, and Jim McManus, again, this is where my prompted my email, which stated that, well, there wasn't 2 feet of water standing in there, number one, it was an inch, maybe 2. And I see the still, I mean, my picture clearly shows, standing water, but that's not the case. I mean, you still need to have the soils, even though it holds water. Farmers can't get on their fields many early springtime because of some soils, even though they're not regulated by a wetland soil. However, again, back to my letter, we did find something that was very small that have a chroma 2 color to it within the diagnostic horizon. However, again, too small to flag. Call it a poorly drained inclusion in an otherwise upland mapping unit. So that's how I see this whole area. And I think
Right.
Matt would see the same thing if he was online with us.
So, Dave, back to
Mr.
you.
Chairman, Madam Chairman, if I can for a second, Neil Marcus again on behalf of the applicant. Just commenting on the discussion, I'd like to put it in a frame of reference that we sort of missed. Historically, there was an an above ground swimming pool that was in this depression. So that was the wetlands use for many, many years, pool. Once the pool was removed, it was revealed that at the bottom underneath the pool is a soil type that could be poorly drained. It's a puddle, no question. Water sits in it. So all we're really asking you to do today is whether you determine that it's a regulated depression or not. All we're asking you to do is the opportunity to put clean fill in the depression, period. I mean, that's the extent of either it's regulated or non-regulated. It doesn't really make a lot of difference in reality. The question is, do we leave an open hole on the site, which we could do, I guess, put a little fence around it, or do we fill it with some clean fill? And as I say, if you're going to weigh the significance of the wetlands, you got to weigh it in terms of the historic use of that portion of the site. It was below a swimming pool, so it really couldn't have supported much vegetation or life that we try to preserve when we preserve wetlands, and it really couldn't have significantly contributed to the hydrology because it was buried under a pool. So I'm listening to this discussion. It's an interesting academic discussion as to what was found and how we got there and whether it's too big or too small. That's fine. But at the end of the day, practically speaking, we're taking an area that had been covered with a pool for years, and we're just filling it with select clean fill. That's what we're asking you to approve, and we think actually you could do it somewhat administratively, because I don't think it's a significant wetlands issue at this point. So that's that. The second issue that Chuck Andrews raised is an issue of which maybe Steve Trinkus could comment on very briefly, and that is under the current revisions to the plan, based upon the new septic area that's been identified for having better quality soil conditions, are there any impacts on an area 100 feet from any discernible wetlands on or off site? Any that can be seen from the information that we have right now? I guess if you could answer that, because that was the second prong of the planning commission's concern.
Yeah,
Understood. All right, go ahead. I just want to acknowledge that we have two other commission members here, Jay and Nico, which are waiting to address some questions. But go ahead, Mr. Trinkus.
Yeah, Steve Trinks for record. In the redesign, the septic is moving up adjacent to Putnam Park Road, and the proposed stormwater management system will be downhill, and it will be located outside the 100-foot upland review area from the off-site wetlands of two properties east of this site that Matt Stanford flagged from SLR and prepared a sketch using GPS and a sketch showing the upland review area just barely coming onto the subject property, more in the southeastern portion of the property, not the northeastern corner. So this is the only regulated activity we're going to be requesting, because the modification of the stormwater management system will be located outside the 100-foot upland review area.
All right, well, do we have a building plan?
We need to see that.
At this point, you don't.
Would the applicant entertain having that site plan that was submitted for planning and zoning commission be put up on the screen for the wetlands commission's benefit?
It is not designed at this time, David. It's preliminary for a concept blessing by planning and zoning, and then we will detail the design if they're happy with the alternative plan.
Understood, Mr. Trinkus, but perhaps it would provide the commission context for the elements that you're describing.
I would leave that up to Mr. Marcus to weigh in on.
Steve, do you have a concept plan, just a sketch that you could put up there? If you do,
Well, it's what we submitted to planning and zoning, Neil.
yeah, do you have it? Could you share it with them now?
I'll walk the commission through it if he wants to pull it up.
I can pull it up here.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Jay, I know you're waiting or you were waiting. Does your comment have to do with this before we move into looking at the site plan, or was it something, I don't want to gloss over?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're talking about a 2 foot by 2 foot area that isn't a part of a larger wetland area. You know, if we're going to consider this wetlands, you know, there's 24 potholes in Bethel that've been here longer than this piece of, you know, wetlands. I mean, to me, this is something that could easily be handled administratively.
Can I, Madam Chair, can I just comment on the idea that this can be handled administratively?
Please.
Just the regulations do allow certain approvals by the authorized agent that don't have to come before the commission. There's a section 3.5 of the regulations, but that's typically for an activity that is not located in a wetland or water course. So this, even though it's very small, pothole size, whatever, that is, I don't read the regulations as authorizing your agent to be able to approve this. So I give the applicant credit. They have filed an application and they're presenting it, and it's you know, I think Mr. Marcus has made the presentation. They're asking permission to fill this very small well, and I think that's the way that's technically the way to go. And the other thing, I'm looking forward to hearing Mr. Trinkhouse. I'm hoping that he could supplement this record with a map or something that would demonstrate that there's no grading or anything else in that area, just because we do have in the record the information. I think Dave put in it, information from that was in the zoning proceeding. So that is in this record. So we'd like to, if Mr. Trinkhouse could supplement that, what is his oral testimony with a map that sort of demonstrates that there'll be no grading beyond that.
Thank you.
Actually, David, let me see if I can pull up my plan so that I can share my screen and walk the commission through it. Bear with me for 1 second. I need to find it here.
All right, before we move on to the map, I just wanted to acknowledge Nico, who's been holding some comments.
Yeah, thank you. So I understand that it's very easy, and I'm not of a dissimilar mind to consider this a very small, insignificant, quote, man-made depression. And that may be, sounds like that's what it is, but it's still not something that it still technically falls under the regulated wetlands. It was flagged or, identified as wetland soils. So that's why it's here before us to begin with. So I think it's a little flippant to just keep continually trying to disregard the thing. Although I understand what you're saying and what the applicant's end goal is. So we'll get there. But, the size of a wetland, there's a reason why it doesn't matter. It could be a naturally occurring vernal pool, right? Nobody wants to hear those words right now, but it doesn't look like it is. That has to be identified and, treated just like we would any other application for any other wetland soils. Okay. With that said, and then, why is it poorly drained? Oh yeah, that it seems like we're focusing, even in my opinion, or from what I can tell, too much on this technicality, although that's what brought us.
Mr. Draper, would you mind saying?
Yeah,
Please.
So
Thank you.
that's what brought the issue before us, was a technicality. So be it. So it's here, but it seems to me that the other more important piece to this is that there are other regulated wetlands within 100 feet of this property, and the, supposedly within the area, 100 feet from the area of disturbance. 100 feet is our stated, adopted, upland review area for the town of Bethel at the moment. But that's not, our regulations don't preclude us from taking under consideration downstream and downhill effects to wetlands from us on or off site. Off of the property lines, wetlands don't really care about the property line, right? So I understand that it may have some implications with, okay, how do we flag those wetlands? We will discuss that, I'm sure. But if the wetlands are there, they're there. And the ones that seem more concerning to an abutting property owner who lives downhill from this site are, the groundwater issues and the seepage that's coming out on their property and the intermittent water course that carries that water. So we're focusing a lot right now on this little insignificant depression, even though, technically you could have a 2-foot vernal pool somewhere. So I don't think we should do that anyway, but I think we need to focus on the downstream effects of the wetlands to the east and the groundwater coming out on that person's property. I just wanted to make sure that we keep it focused on the important, what I view as the actual important issue, and not the main, pool.
Madam Chair, Tim McManus here. I just want to clarify one thing. I don't ignore something that's wetland because it's small. I ignore it because it's small, disturbed, it's insignificant. It's so small that you can't really wrap your arms around it. I can step over it, whatever the case may be. And I just call it like I said a number of times tonight, a poorly drained inclusion and otherwise upland mapping unit.
I hear that.
Vernal pool is not a insignificant, and that is a wetland. This particular thing just happens to meet a definition by the state of Connecticut.
Right.
Vernal pool is more than meeting a definition. It actually has a function and a value to it. And that's the difference in this case, and maybe something that you may have seen in your travels.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So are we ready to look at the?
Well, yeah, David, do I just hit present now to get share screen with this application?
You
Yes,
should be
please.
able to share your screen, Mr. Trinkus, of course.
uh, uh, oh, which one do I? Oh, window. Okay. A little bit different than Zoom. So,
Here it is. We got it.
okay. All right. So this modified plan moves the units basically from the front of the site to about the mid portion of the site, connects them in an L-shaped configuration, which means that the septic is only a 6-bedroom instead of 2 4-bedroom systems as required by the code. The primary system is these 2 rows parallel to Putnam Park Road. The reserve are these other 2. The driveway is also being relocated to the south, coming into the units. Each of these have garage under, so we have a space in each of them. The upland review area from the offsite wetland, if you trace my cursor, is basically a little arc like this.
We're not able to see your
Not seeing
cursor,
that.
Mr. Trinkus.
So it's a very small area right in the southeast corner. So the stormwater management system, it just, basically copied it up here just for shape. Can go here, it can go below the parking area, but it'll all the work associated will be outside the 100-foot review. I've looked at that, and I have plenty of room to accomplish that.
Well,
It's gotta be the bottom right
It's-
corner, north is bottom.
yeah, where's north?
It's the bottom right, if you're not seeing the cursor, it's the bottom right-hand corner of this property. There's a contour that's kind of a 90-degree right in the corner, and then another contour, I think it's the
432?
He's talking here.
Yeah,
but the
432. Yeah.
arc from the offsite wetlands is in the southeast corner of this site, not up where I show our stormwater management system.
Which is over here.
And so what is this large rectangular grid in the north?
That's the same stormwater management system we had on the old plan. I did not modify it for the new plan at this time, but if the Planning and Zoning Commission likes the alternative concept, then, this site will be fully graded and designed, and this system will likely change because I can make it longer and thinner, instead of, I guess, short and fat, for lack of a better term. So
So I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying, because I'm not sure that I do. Are you saying that the stormwater management system that's outlined on this plan that we're looking at on the screen right now, that has that system that's northeast corner is
the
not going?
rectangle, yeah, the rectangle in the northeast corner, the upper right is, the same as the stormwater management system from the old plan, but just relocated for a placeholder.
Excuse me. You guys are talking 2 different things. I understand what you're asking. Steve's not explaining it clear. That's basically a placeholder. That's where the new stormwater is going. Right now, it's more like a square. He can make it longer, but it's all going to be out of that 100-foot review.
But it's absolutely in the 100
No,
foot
it's
review.
No, it's not. If you look at the sketch that SLR did, you will see that
As well as something offsite, which is somewhere in this vicinity?
Yeah. You're talking 2 things.
Uh-huh.
The 100-foot is what we're talking about offsite.
From the offsite, right?
Correct.
But
That's
not, this is our pool
That's
depression,
That's
correct?
correct.
That we're building, right?
Correct.
It's right in the middle of Elder Building, 100 foot, yes.
Right. So
Correct.
this is within, if this is
That
actually
is within,
delineated,
yes.
and this is not. This is
Correct.
outside of?
Yep.
Well, we don't have any flagging to know what's offsite here.
Well, no,
Do we
you
have a
actually
survey?
do have flagging.
So,
on SLR.
Okay.
So I will, if I may, present, on my screen, Mr. Trinkus, briefly.
sure.
Can you overlay your plan onto his plan at all to show the line?
The capabilities that I have with my computer, I cannot do that.
Tim, I haven't done that, but I can tell you I did overlay it in CAD. I did not transfer the line, but
Yep.
if David pulls up the SLR document, you'll see that it does, the 100-foot upland review from the offsite wetland is not very far onto your property.
120, that's divided by here for this.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Okay. So here's the sketch by SLR. Obviously, the wetland area is in that green area. And this yellow dashed line is the 100-foot upland review. My stormwater management system is in the upper right corner of our property. So the upper left of the map, just below the white line. So it's clearly outside that 100-foot.
You following it?
Yeah,
Okay,
I understand what he's saying.
Okay, I was making sure that you know which the property is.
Yeah,
That's all.
so-
Which one's your property?
Okay,
that's-
that's why I'm
Alright.
asking. Everything to the left, where the two white lines are,
Yes,
that's my property. You don't see the road. The other two that are highlighted in the red,
that's it.
those are the ones where they found a seep or
Right,
whatever.
so I'm just.
So the property with wetlands is two properties.
Right,
So-
so the number of properties over, as Nico was, had commented before, the number of properties, that's not what you use in your regulations, it's the distance, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's the 100 feet, so here is, as you guys can see my cursor, Dodging Town Road, this is going towards the schools, or that intersection with Judd Avenue. Here are two structures at 123 and 125. As Mr. Draper just said, if you follow my cursor, the eastern portion of his property, the northern property line follows my cursor here. It shares this section of property line with 123 Milwaukee Avenue right here. And then the southernmost property line is where my cursor is down here, going towards the SLR logo. So the portion of 100, the portion of the 100-foot regulated upland review area that's associated with wetlands on 125 Milwaukee Avenue extends to this dashed area, roughly this dashed area that I'm following with my cursor here in orange. And it goes to the property lines shown here in red and in gray.
How can we be sure that the activities proposed for this application for 9 Putnam Park Road will not have any offsite effects into those?
That's what we
wetlands?
do in the wetlands to make sure any permit we
That's our
get in front of us
Right.
has whatever pre-existing was flowing off can still be pre-existing. Nothing can be added to it, and the quality, and I'm not worried about but the quality of the water has to either be improved or stay the same.
That seems to
That's
be
why
our
we
job,
never,
right?
we've never looked at, oh, there may be wetlands next door, because no matter what, you got the same amount of water coming off with the same quality of water. So we never said to it, we never said to an applicant who brought something like this in, well, this is great. You have a little pocket of wetland here, maybe 100 feet or whatever. Let's say they had a pond. I want to see what's 2 or 1. I want to see what's next door. We've never done that.
I understand what you're saying,
Maybe
but
should, but also
Why is it-
we have a budding property owner and neighbor who brought these.
And I agree with that. And
So that triggered this,
so,
which it shouldn't
Right.
have to necessarily come to that. We should be.
oh, I think this had to come to us
Foresee
because
downhill flow of water from a site.
I think it had to come to us because there is wetlands on the private, no matter how small. I give kudos to zoning for recognizing that. Question I have, SLR noted 2 feet of water on, and marks on the trees where the water was. Are they talking here somewhere else than the 2 foot?
That's,
Where's the tree?
so
I want to make sure we're not, like, we see this one,
No,
is
no,
there another spot they're
understood.
saying that's.
that was another thing I was trying to look for in the record to show you the photographs.
Right, okay.
Again, just as a point of emphasis, wetlands are not dictated by the presence or absence of water.
No,
They're
but,
determined by soil type.
and they were pointing out with the soil type that they pointed out markings on the tree indicating, I just want to make sure they're referring to this wetland and not that they feel there's another wetland.
No,
They're
they are,
referring to this.
that's correct.
Okay, so here's my thought. Again, because of this wetland being small, not to say it's not significant, because it is, my opinion was it should be able to be reviewed by staff. However, according to our lawyer, the town or wetland lawyer, that's not the way the law is written in Connecticut. So not to belabor this point all night long, we have to review this. We have to accept this. or not
We don't
accept
have
it,
to,
or
but that
not
is what is
accept
before
it.
us to
So I
discuss.
think we need to decide that, because then the applicant will come in with a drawing plan
Right.
that'll show us if water's flowing off, how much is flowing. The questions we're asking, they'll be presented in front of us with. So I think the question for us now isn't, do we approve or not? The question is, do we accept it or don't accept it, and how
Right.
we accept it?
Correct. Steve, do we have a complete application?
That is for you to decide. Again, it is worth noting the soils reports that you have, that they would not, how do I phrase this? This commission is familiar with on-site soil investigation reports and how those read and what those entail. You have to decide if whether or not what was submitted for this application is comparable to what you would expect from an on-site soils investigation report.
And at the moment, we have the one statement from Mr. McManus.
So you have the reports from soil scientists that you have,
And from us.
or the soil scientist reports that have been submitted for this property.
Mhm.
Let me phrase it that way.
Right.
You have the JMM report dated June 3rd, 2024. You have the response from Matt Sanford of Bethel International Corporation dated June 3rd, 2024. And you have Mr. McManus's response in an email format dated June 4th, 2024. That is what has been submitted.
Respectfully.
My only concern is we do not have, which is being worked on, we do not have a plan. Right now, we're approving the building law, so to speak. We're approving a concept. We're not approving a site plan. Is that correct?
No, I think I need to interject here. We're asking to fill in 2 square feet of wetlands and the adjacent upland soils in the depression. That's all we're asking for. Once the fill is placed, there is no longer a regulated area on this lot.
But
And-
filling the wetlands is a regulated activity that requires the approval of.
That's why we're in front of you. We're asking to fill in 2 square
Correct.
feet.
And you are suggesting that we need to review your application, and in order to do so, we need the proper information and testing and whatever else is required for this application. So we are now discussing whether or not we have appropriate materials to do so.
Yeah, and I appreciate that that's the goal, is to fill that in, and that probably shouldn't be a problem, it looks like we'll see.
Well, let's,
But it's this off-site regulated wetland that's within 100 feet of the property boundary, not necessarily in the limit of disturbance. Chuck, can you weigh in on whether that's the legal trigger for this, if it's the proposed limit of disturbance or the property boundary? Regardless, there's a wetland down there that we need to make sure it doesn't get messed up. So that's what we really need to do.
Mr. Andrews, you're muted. I can't hear you.
My apologies. Yes, Chuck Andrews, attorney for commission. A couple things. One of the things my suggestion is you're deciding whether to accept it and whether it's complete application. One of the things Mr. Trinkhouse mentioned is that the stormwater management is kind of a placeholder for that was from the original application, but they may be able to enlarge it and modify it. And frankly, if the main concern is the impact to the offsite wetlands, there could be changes. There may be some changes that may have some wetlands impacts, which my thought, that's another reason why you want to keep this open, because what is going to happen from the zoning side, there's going to be outside engineers look at it, will look at the stormwater, and they may say, hey, you should make some changes, and that may affect you may be within the 100-foot area or may not. There may be some erosion stuff. So it may trigger some further review by you, because that side of this, according as I understand from Mr. Trinkhouse, is not yet completed. So that's just another reason. I understand they haven't applied for it yet. And as it stands right now, it looks like maybe they won't need it. But the last thing we want to have happen is to, you get done with your application and then it turns out zoning modifies it and then it triggers something. So that I'm hoping you keep this going for that, so you get a better sense of where the stormwater, how that's going to be done. Is it going to involve any grading that could possibly have some impacts on that? I don't know if that answered your question, though. It probably wasn't. That was sort of my own independent observation.
Simple question though, because this request is just to fill in that hole. If they come in with a secondary proposal or an updated proposal or a site plan that involves,
This is our opportunity to review this
is this
application.
the only
This is
opportunity we
our
have
only
for this?
opportunity, because planning and zoning has kicked it to us to review. So this is our opportunity to weigh in on whether or not this is going to have an impact. So if we do not review this and we say it's fine to proceed and they change their plan, we've already signed off on it.
Well, if any changes are made, then the applicant would have to come back to you for a modification of an approval.
Yeah. And
Okay.
if they make modifications that do directly impact the 100-foot regulation area, they would have to put that for us. Correct?
That's correct.
So I have one.
And I mean, you can keep it open to see if that's more of a likelihood. I'm trying to help consolidate the processes. From both zoning and wetlands. Is last thing you want is there be, okay, so you determine, you approve the application. Okay, let's go ahead to fill it. And it's premature even to do that. I understand that you wouldn't do that till probably a later meeting and you'd have a resolution and so forth. But what if there's another change and then it turns out there's another regulated activity, then zoning has to deny it again? I think we have some flexibility here to keep it open, to at least get zoning started, to see if that changes, and then you'll be in a position to decide that. The other thing is what triggers the zoning, the timeline on the zoning for this modification procedure, frankly, is the wetlands. We get 35 days after wetlands decides, and I've spoken with Mr. Marcus, that's going to allow more time for zoning to do it. So I think that to review the application, and I think that's appropriate. And
Is there any side to reviewing the application here before we hand it back to planning and zoning?
excuse me.
Why would we not review this completely before?
You would. You would review it, but it sounds like there could be changes in the application from what the applicant said.
I think we're losing a little sight here of what's going on. Mr. Draper owns this property. We have this small area of poorly drained soils. Irregardless of what development may go in on this site, we're simply asking to fill in the area where the above ground pool was, including the 4 square feet of wetlands. That's the limit.
We're not losing sight of that. Stated that.
If the zoning does not like the alternative plan, then the appeal that was taken of the original denial continues in court and the alternative plan goes on the shelf. I will tell you, based on 40+ years of experience, that this site, when it's fully designed, will not have any activity within 100 feet of that off-site wetland area. The stormwater management system will be designed in accordance with the current Town of Bethel standards, and it will be outside of it. And that's the limit of this. But all we're asking for now is to fill in the hole on the property. That's it. No buildings, no driveways, no septics, no nothing. That's filling in the hole.
Understood.
So question, if we gave approval to fill in the hole, we're done with it then. We can't go back and look at your site plan to see how the water's flowing off the property.
If the stormwater management system is designed in accordance with the Town of Bethel regulations, that's solely, and it's outside the 100-foot upland review area, that's solely the jurisdiction of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have to meet 0 increase in the peak rate of runoff for the 25-year storm, as every other applicant has, and also address water quality. Those are the 2 standards, and if the activities are outside the 100-foot, it stays at planning and zoning. That's it.
I need clarification. I need legal clarification for that, please, Mr. Trinkus, because
From Mr. Andrus?
I'm just responding to Mr. Trinkus, but legal clarification concerning that, whether, and I already asked this, I don't have an answer yet, is whether the construction activity within or without the 100-foot upland review area triggers it to come before inland wetlands, or if it's the property boundary and the development associated with the application on that property that the property boundary that falls within the 100-foot upland review area, that triggers the review of our commission, the Wetlands Commission. I believe it's the latter. Chuck.
It's not the property. No, it's the operation within or the use of a wetland or water course or upland review area. So it's any removal or deposition within 100 feet of a wetland or water course. So it's not the property line itself. It's the activity, any activity within 100 feet of a wetland water course, whether it's on that property or another property. That's my understanding, I believe.
So, and I'm sorry, I'm belaboring the point, but a couple of questions. If someone that bought the property 2 years ago came in and said, I don't know, I want to use my yard, I want to fill that in, got approval from you to fill it in, they wouldn't have to come in front of us right now. But because there is, they have to come in front of us. Is that correct?
Can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
If someone that came 2 years ago and said, I want to fill that in because I want to put a swing set and got permission to fill it in, then coming to build a house on it, they would not have to come in front of us because there's no wetlands on the property. I can't get over this, that we're looking at the neighbor's property when I've never seen the plan with neighbor's property with wetland. I think it has to be looked at now because the concern's been brought up. But like I said, I only remember one plan where, I mean, it was a huge wetland next to it, but I don't remember ever seeing a plan that had, oh, well, we got to consider the neighbors because our guideline is whatever comes off has to be the same.
Right. So the investigation was the perspective of the investigation was for the offsite wetland. Okay. So the fact that
I can't shut it off. You can keep looking at me. I don't know how to shut it off. The volume's off.
It's on the side. It's
On the side, it's a little toggle.
Where? I don't
maybe
know.
a different phone.
Is it an iPhone?
Yeah.
Do you
So,
mind?
so here's
Go ahead. I don't know how to shut it off.
There you are, sir.
Thank you. So here's the question. Someone comes in to build on a lot, okay? And you need certain checks, wetlands, no wetlands, you know, street exit, whatever. Do we look at, does it say, do you have wetlands on your property? Are you in 100 feet of any wetlands, including the neighbor's property?
100 feet of any wetlands.
Is that the case?
Yes, that's what it said.
All right. Okay. And that's, all right.
But the activity has to be occurring at the property itself.
No, no,
right. So
within 100
here's
areas,
here's an example, and that's where you would apply the declaratory ruling process. If a property has, if a property has a portion where there's a 100-foot upland review area and the applicant demonstrates that none of their proposed activities are taking place within that 100-foot upland review area, then the commission can issue what's called a declaratory ruling to say, we believe that the applicant has demonstrated with consideration to their activities taking place outside of a 100-foot upland review area that they will have no adverse impacts to the on-site portion of the 100-foot upland review area that's associated with the off-site wetlands or water course resource.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin, do you have more questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Nico, do you have more questions?
Yeah, can we accept this with the information that we have? And if we do accept it, does that triggers the 65-day timeline?
Well, we also have to decide if we're going to do a site plan review or if we're going to do a public
First,
hearing.
we just have to decide whether we can accept the application or if it's wise to do so. If it triggers a 65-day ruling, we don't have all the information that we need to make any sort of decision.
Well,
It doesn't hold us- doesn't have to
this
put
is
us in that.
where if you chose to accept it, you would advise the applicant of whatever other materials you would need to have submitted for your review so you could render a decision.
Even though those aren't provided now.
That's correct.
That's normal. Okay.
What you might be thinking about is that it's important for us to decide if we want to have it peer reviewed. And that's something that we need to
Well, also
determine
that.
very quickly.
Sure.
correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
we made that determination tonight.
I just didn't want to put us in the legal backseat, and as far as timelines go, if like we don't have a 100-foot upland review area even written on our plans right now. I guess you said that we can ask for that for the next meeting.
Yeah, that should be a request the applicant should be able to address.
What else are we missing that we have to ask for?
Well, we need, well, if, that's for us to determine.
Let's determine.
You're holding,
Should I read through this and we're gonna like check it?
Well, so this shouldn't be an exercise in going through a checklist and going through every single item. You're looking for the fundamentals at this point. So whether or not there was a survey, whether or not there was a site plan, whether or not there were soils reports, an application, a DEEP reporting form, items of that nature. And then if there are items that need to be refined on each of those, then that's where during the review process, those should be addressed. But you're looking for the big picture items at the moment. That's what you really should be considering.
And I think that would affect somebody else's time being implicated to do something for us. We review these things with manager.
I think the only thing you're missing
Sidewalk as well.
is the only thing you're missing right now, like, in my opinion, is the site plan. If that's what I'm looking, how the houses are and how the water flows,
Right.
and soil testing.
which they're working on. So I don't know about soil testing.
Well, to determine whether or not this 2-foot by 2-foot area is in fact, well, there were soils there
Okay.
that we are being told by our legal representation qualified. So then it is within our purview to determine whether or not they actually are going to be impacted or not.
Jim, did you, pardon me, Jim,
Mr. McMahon.
Mr.
There
McManus,
you go.
sorry. Quick question for you. I know that you did some testing on site and you took some core samples on site. Do you have the notations of the core samples you took or the information surrounding them by chance? Is that something you could share with us?
Was it submitted?
The deep test holes are marked on this.
You're on mute.
Different.
That's different.
You're on mute.
That's just-
Sorry.
No, I typically don't do that. It's just a matter of finding where the boundary, say there was a wetland on the site. And I would do my cores to determine where the boundary was. On this particular site, I dug my cores in and around the entire depressional area. Step
Okay.
back a little bit. Some of that ponding or that water stain on the tree, that's in moderately well-drained soils. The very, very bottom was where I dug a hole with my auger and found, quote, a poorly drained area. I determined it'd be too small to flag. But if it was too big, I mean, if it was larger, I would have put flags around it and then you would have known what I've done because I cored enough to get my conclusions made. But in this particular case, I wasn't going to flag anything on the site and I still stand by that it's just an inclusion in an upland mapping unit.
No, that's fine. I was just curious if you had any notations on the cores that you didn't take or
No, I typically don't unless it's asked for or it's a legal thing.
Yeah, of course.
Have to go to
Steve
court.
Trinkus, again, just for the record, I've done land use for 40 plus years, worked with Mr. McManus, many other soil scientists. No soil scientist I've ever worked with has submitted their actual cores or pictures to a commission. They do a soils report outlining their boundary and the soil types found. That also applies to your town consultant SLR on projects that they have done. They have never submitted the data that now they're requesting of Mr. McManus. So, you know, the soil scientist's job is to determine the wetlands in the field, delineate it, and provide an overall soils report. But the cores or pictures of cores have never been provided by any soil scientist, including your own consultants, you know, when I've done, you know, work for the past 40 years. So it's not something that they do. And I think that's important to have on the record.
So
Yeah, Steve, I mean, that's a very good point. The other thing I would also mention is it's just not necessary, frankly. Our work is shown by where the flags go. And then you have a process in hand where you can have a wetland boundary that you're suspicious about. You can have a third-party reviewer go out and look, and he'll do the same thing I did, is probe around and see if I did it right. So, I mean, we just do not log our cores because it's not necessary. We core to find the answers, and then when we find the answers, we hang the flag.
Yeah, I was more concerned about just questioning whether or not you have a soil report on it, just from based on what you did. If there's any kind of soil report listed.
Well, I mean, my soils report would be the June 3rd letter, which says, you know, there's a man-made depression there, and I wouldn't flag it. And if you want to throw in my email, you could say that. And that would be your soils report. That there may be technically by state statutes the wetland, but we're not recognizing it. Other than it's a small depression that will be filled in an otherwise upland mapping unit.
Nope, I'm good. I'm good.
Jim, are these your, whose deep test holes are shown on this site plan for this?
That's Steve Trinkus's work.
Oh, okay. So they were done.
Steve Trinkus, for the record, the holes in the northeast corner of the site near this pocket that we're discussing were done by my office a year ago in August. The holes that are up in the northwest corner of the site up near Putnam Park Road were just dug Tuesday by my office and also witnessed by Jim McManus to confirm the depth to a restrictive soil layer.
Great, thank you for confirming that. So the M on this is modeling, stands for modeling?
That's the depth of modeling, yes.
Okay. So I see like 15, yeah, great. There's inches marked. Okay. I was just wondering if we, in light of the new, well, I don't know if we're there yet. You know, in light of, we're talking about like basically groundwater, like seepage and travel to a downhill offsite to property and wetland. That's how I understand it. Would you agree with that? And then
I don't think I would, for the sole reason that hard pan soils where modeling is encountered is generally a perched seasonal high groundwater table on top of what is basically an impermeable soil layer. As these layers go down the slope, occasionally, either due to grading or some other geological aspect of the site, the hard pan layer may get thinner, or I should say the upper loam layer gets thinner, and water will bleed from on top of the hard pan out to the ground surface, thus giving you a groundwater seep.
Cool.
It's the water simply is coming out of the upland soil because the layer of upland soil gets thinner over the hard pan layer. That's typically how it works. If somebody was to cut into the hillside, they would intercept that seasonal groundwater table and water would bleed, you know, out into the hole that they dug. That's typically what happens when we dig test pits, is we dig through the hard pan layer that if there is groundwater, it will bleed in on top of that layer into the bottom of the pit. And that's what happens. So.
But would you agree that our job here is to make sure that the groundwater doesn't travel, is not affected by the site improvements that you guys are proposing?
With all due respect, and I sat on my Southbury Wetlands Board in the mid-2000s, the job of a wetlands commission is to regulate activities in or within a certain distance of a defined wetland soil. That's the statutory job of a wetlands commission, having sat on one.
Well, but intermittent water courses are also considered a wetland.
Well,
Not on our site though, Nico. There's no wetland on the site.
Right, it's
For
off.
a small little 2x2 depression. So you can't save the town of Bethel. You have a regulation. You have to follow it. You have to make a determination. Is this proposal going to impact regulated wetlands? And it's Steve's job and my job to determine not only if we had on-site wetlands, we have to prove that we're not going to have an impact downstream or off-site wetlands as well. So it's on us to figure this out.
That's my concern. That's the same concern.
But we don't need them to confirm what our job is.
Yeah,
We just
no,
need to decide whether or not we're going to accept this for review, and if we are going to accept it for review, under which process. And then, and whether or not we have all of the information before us that we need in order to do so, or whether we have things that we need to request from them in order to have a more complete application so that we can consider it.
Rock and roll.
Awesome. Jay, any more comments or questions from you in the
Thank you.
Cyberland?
I mean, it's to me, this is just a giant waste of taxpayer money that we're even dealing with this. We have two experts here with Mr. McManus and Mr. Trinkus here, you know, telling us that we're not in the upland review area and that this is not a wetland, and we're just beating a dead horse here. I mean, if we're going to keep this going, I really hope that we see the town highway department in front of this board every week when they're filling in potholes that are larger than this area that we're fighting about on a daily basis, closer to actual wetlands. This is obviously a man-made issue, and we're just making a huge deal out of nothing, if you ask me.
Well, we have, all due respect, we have actual wetlands within 100 foot of this site. So that's what we're talking about. In my opinion, that's what we're actually.
In fact, it's not an opinion. We have them within the area.
Yeah, it's not this.
But that's all right. We don't need to argue amongst ourselves. Jay,
Yeah.
thank you for your comments. Was there more that you
Yeah,
wanted to say?
That's it.
Thank you very much. And did you have comments that you wanted to make before we move forward?
Just that we're here to take care of the water. That's our job. The water from the groundwater and the drinking water and the water supply in the watershed. That's our job.
Pat, I'm sorry, were you finished?
Yeah.
Pat?
No, basically like Nico said, and Jay said, I don't think it's about this 2 foot hole. It's about the wetland that was identified off-site.
Okay, Kevin?
I have nothing further to contribute.
Okay. I have said my piece as well, so I think that covers the commission. Do you have more that is it appropriate for me to toss to you?
Does the commission want to, I have found the photograph of the depression in question. Does the commission have any interest in?
I would like to see it. I will say yes.
For everybody else.
Okay. Nope, I'm sorry. There we go. There we go. Can everybody see my screen?
Sure can.
Should be noted that this photograph was taken on April 12th, 2024.
Hey, so that's bigger than 2 feet, but
Pretty full there, yeah.
It's not the ponded area, it's the area of poorly drained soils. Again, the area ponds water. It ponds water in a man-made depression in moderately well-drained soils, except for a very small area in the bottom of this depression. You can't get all, this is a man-made hole that fills with water on a seasonal basis, but only a very, very small area, 2 by 2, actually has state-regulated soils, indicating by a poorly drained characteristic. That's the take-home message.
So this is where we get back to wetlands isn't the water, it's the land under the water.
It's the soil type.
Soil type, thank you.
That's correct.
Can I ask Jim a question? Hey, Jim,
Yeah,
last Tuesday, how much water was in that depression?
there was 0 water last Tuesday.
But we don't determine it by the amount of water. that's in
Exactly,
depression.
that's the point I'm
It's a
getting about
wetland,
what
the
Pat just
soil.
said.
That's,
Thank
and
you.
folks, that's why we examine the soils, because if you go out in April after snow melt and frost out, you'll see a bunch of water like we see many places. You go out in August, you may not see a thing. It might be bone dry, but the soils tell us the history of the landscape, and they tell us all the information I need to know to make the appropriate decisions on what something is a regulated wetland or something is not. So that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's why you guys have me go out to different sites to figure out what's going on, so we can come and talk to you folks about what we found.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
All right, so unless I am too tired to know better, now is the moment when we decide whether or not we are going to accept this for review. We vote on that first, and then we determine whether or not.
Come to a consensus.
Okay, that's a great idea. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate you keeping me on track. So, reading the room here, Jay, I'm going to start with you. Are you leaning towards accepting this for review?
No.
Thank
No,
you.
no.
Okay, Nico, are you leaning towards accepting this for review?
Yes. Do we need to determine?
Right now, I'm just
how?
reading the room, and then we will talk about how we would want to proceed with that if we've got.
Yeah.
Pat?
Yes, based on our lawyer's recommendation that this cannot be done by staff.
I second Pat's exact statement. Yes.
We also will be leaning towards accepting it for review, so that looks like we have enough people that would be accepting it for review that we would want to have a conversation about whether we want to discuss this as a site plan review or a public hearing.
That's
format.
correct.
So just to refresh everybody's memory, if we were going to accept it for a public hearing, is it acceptable for me to read any rationale for that?
It's up to you.
Okay, so if we were going to do a public hearing, we would need grounds for that, and the grounds would have to meet one of these criteria. The commission would have to determine that the proposed activity may have a significant impact on wetlands. Wait a minute. Yeah, a significant impact on wetlands or water courses, or a petition signed by at least 25 persons who are 18 years of age or older who reside in Bethel. Requesting a hearing is filed with the commission no later than 14 days after the date of receipt of such application. Do we have anything like that on file, Dave?
No, as this application was submitted on the 18th, so those 14 days would not have expired yet.
Okay, so we do not yet, but it could potentially. The commission finds that a public hearing regarding such application would be in the public interest. Or finally, the commission has determined that a core activity as defined in these regulations may have a significant impact on wetlands or water courses and will automatically schedule a public hearing in order to expedite the application process. As I don't think any of us were attending the public meetings that took place for planning and zoning, do we have a sense for whether or not there was a great deal of public interest?
I believe it would be fair to say that for the public hearing process for the Planning and Zoning Commission application, there were public present, and they did ask questions.
But can't the public still come if we turn it in?
That's correct,
what's-
but with a public hearing process, they have a defined period to offer comment and or questions to the commission.
So they would have the opportunity to weigh in with comments, and we've had those before where there's a point in the meeting where people get to
And
participate.
That's every meeting.
for a public hearing, there would be
Not really
what's
each
called
one.
an abutters notice that is issued to everybody within 100 feet of the subject property that a hearing is taking place.
But it have to be, remember that would have to be in conjunction to the wetland portion of the conversation.
That's correct.
P and Z portion of the conversation.
Oh,
That's correct.
absolutely,
Yeah, we'll make
yes,
that clear.
That's correct.
yes, and that would have to be made clear
Very,
during the
very,
comment section,
yes.
which we have done in the past, and
Yes.
yes, absolutely.
I wanted to make sure that I said that.
Sure, but so I would just mention to the commission members that we're leaning towards approving it, that there was public interest, and in fact, some of the things that we've discussed today were that this was brought to the attention of P and Z by abutting members of the public. So consider that.
Does that mean?
We don't have to do anything.
Public hearing, or can we
Nope.
accept it as a site plan
We
review?
could accept it as a site plan review if we felt like that was more appropriate. I just wanted you to be aware of what the options for that would be.
Right.
Okay, so can I get a reading on that? Jay, do you want to weigh in on whether or not you think it would be more appropriate to do a site plan review or a public meeting?
I mean, I guess the site plan review, yeah, site plan review, I guess.
Thanks, Nico.
I'll defer to the commission on that.
Okay, Pat?
I always go with public opinion, so I would do, what was it again? The one-
Public hearing?
Public hearing, thank you.
On what grounds?
Grounds.
See, this is the part that gets me, nothing on there says public interest.
Yes, it does. Right there.
So if you go
Okay,
to
and
section
on
4.3.1.
Yeah, she just put that there.
The timeline was the same.
Based on 1C,
Nope,
I'm sorry?
public hearing is longer.
Right,
based
so,
on 1C,
so for a public hearing, if
4.3.
if I am recalling the periods for the process, you would have up to 65 days to open the public hearing. You would have 35 days to conduct the public hearing. And then I believe within, what is the period for a decision? I believe it's 35 days after the public hearing, you would have to render a decision. Whereas for a site plan review, you would have just a flat 65-day period plus any extensions that the applicant would grant you.
So you would be in favor of a public hearing based on 4.316?
Yeah.
Kevin?
I'd be in favor of site plan review for this particular instance.
Okay. Okay.
On what grounds?
On the grounds of, more time to get.
It has to be one of these reasons right here, if that's what you're going to. Available for anyone to, that's why I bring the binder.
Oh, 1431 and it may have a significant impact on looking for workers. And
Okay, I'm going to just abstain from this because we, oh, well, I would also be in favor of a public hearing based on the fact that there already is a significant amount of public interest as determined by the PNC. And I think that that carries over into what I said earlier, also that this was brought before us by abutting members who have an interest in what's going on.
Just to clarify, it appears that more commissioners are, if I'm recalling correctly, Jay Oldman wants a site plan review, Nico wants public hearing, Danielle wants public hearing, Pat wants public hearing, and Kevin wants site plan review.
Yes.
So that would be 3 for public hearing, 2 for a site plan review.
Yes.
For those that would want to do a public hearing, it's better to clarify the reason for why you would want to use that process instead of having it be for more than one reason. Unless, maybe just clarify. Okay. No, I yeah. Okay. So and I'll have Attorney Andrus clarify. An application can be accepted for public hearing for not just one of those 4 reasons, correct?
No, though it has to be, the statute says you can only have a public hearing if it comes, actually, there's only 3 in the statute. There's 25 signatures, significant activity, and public interest.
Okay,
But it
but
could just be one
it has to be one of those, not more than.
Correct.
Okay, so it seems that we are in a dead heat in that we have 2 for site plan review, 2 for 2 for public hearing for one process, and 1 for public hearing for another. So it may make sense to have the commission redo their consensus so that they can have a majority for which process to use.
Okay.
So
I find that we should have a public hearing on the basis of, that it may have, the activities may have a significant impact on wetlands or water courses, 1A, and it's in the public interest.
You can only
have
one.
right.
So you just,
He just said you
No,
only get one.
Attorney Andrus clarified you can only use one.
You need
You
to
can
do
only
A or C.
use one.
It-
You
I
feel-
mean, it could be more than one, but if you do significant activity that triggers a finding of no feasible and prudent alternative, you can't approve it unless you make that. That's not the case if you trigger public interest. But yeah, you should specify which one it is, or if it's both, it's both. Whichever one has the majority, I guess.
So at the moment, the majority who want a public hearing feel that it would fall under, the commission finds that a public hearing regarding such application would be in the public interest. Do you have a different opinion on that?
I think it's both.
Understood, but we need to pick one to go with. And we would need to be able to substantiate A.
Which you really can't, but you don't really have to substantiate C,
C, yep.
because C is,
So I'm asking if you're in disagreement with this.
No.
Okay. Would you be comfortable with that being the reason that we are going to vote on whether or not this would be appropriate for a public hearing?
Sure.
I'm asking you.
You're not saying that there isn't.
You're not saying the other
impact.
things don't imply. We're just,
There's what Attorney Anderson said is that there's a different,
But two of us
Outcomes,
aren't
yeah.
willing to vote for that one, or I'm not willing
I'm
to
not.
vote for that one. The
Okay.
two of us are not willing
So
to
no,
accept
wait
it on
to-
those grounds.
understood. Say that again, because then if that's the grounds, it's 1A.
If we're gonna vote on something,
It's gotta be unanimous.
it has to
Well,
be
you have to have a
approved by a
majority.
majority who all are in agreement. And that has to be including right down to on what grounds.
And the reason to not vote for 1A for significant impact.
This
is
needs to be
because-
substantiated in a quantitative way.
Which we cannot do right now.
We do not have information in order to substantiate that in a quantitative way. Agreed. Which is why Pat and I are not willing to use that as
Exactly.
a rationale for this.
Okay, I'm gonna defer to what you guys decide. Yes, so C.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and I will entertain a motion to accept this application in the form of a public hearing on the grounds that the commission finds that a public hearing regarding such application would be in the public interest. Do I hear a, yes, did I say that right?
You did?
Second.
Well, yeah, I need a motion. Can you motion?
I thought you just
No,
motioned.
I
it.
said I will entertain a motion.
Motion made. How's that?
Uh,
Are you gonna make me repeat that?
I'm just gonna
you
make.
should for the record.
I would prefer not making that motion.
Yeah, so motion to accept this application for a public hearing based on section 4.31C of the town of Bethel regulations. The commission finds that a public hearing regarding such application would be in the public interest. Motion made.
Do I hear a second?
I will second it.
Wonderful. Let us go ahead and vote. Jay, do you, yay or nay?
Nay.
Thank you. Nico?
Yeah.
Thank you. Pat?
Yay.
Thank you.
Nay.
Thank you. I'm gonna vote yay. So that would be 3-2. Amanda
Correct.
saw that.
Right.
Motion carries.
Yes, it does.
Motion carries. All right.
Now the commission has to schedule the date for when the public hearing will open.
Will you offer me some guidance, please, Dave?
So, the commission can choose to, have this, public hearing open during the commission's next regular meeting, which would be on October 28th. The commission is so inclined, they can open the public hearing, sooner, obviously in accordance with what the regulations would allow for legal notices and the abutters notices and what have you. Or they can opt to, schedule the public hearing open later, depending on what they want the applicant to provide as part of the review process.
So reading the room again, I think what I hear that we want is a soil report, a more comprehensive soil report. Is that accurate?
Is that possible?
Yes?
Because there's no technically delineated wetlands at this point. Where
Well,
There is, hold on. That,
It would need to be flagged.
Yep.
Right? And then tested.
did the large to submit such a,
So the report that
and
SLR,
most of it, they're calling it a wetland.
so the report that, SLR submitted, the comments that, that SLR provided are based on the Matthew Sanford email that I read aloud dated June 4th. That is, those are the soil scientist comments from SLR pertaining to that depression area of poorly drained soils.
That they determined a wetland.
They did not, SLR did not have a soil scientist to perform testing.
Well, how do they definitively call it a wetland?
So they,
So by that, it's underwater. I don't know.
right. So I will read Mr. Sanford's response again. Quote, The letter does not mention whether Mr. McManus extracted any soil cores or from the depressional area mentioned in the letter. From the photos that were attached to his letter, the depressional feature appears to have approximately 2 feet of standing water portions of the year. There's clear stain line from the trunks of the trees and dark, i.e. black colored leaves in the depression. It looks like there is some surface water still present in the photo. SLR recommends that the soil scientists provide photo documentation and locations to further demonstrate that the depressional feature does not have poorly or very poorly drained soils per state regulations and to complete the zoning permit application record.
So they're not even saying it is a wetland, they're saying it looks like and it is here, so they didn't even get to the wetland to say it's a wetland. They're just saying it's like raining.
Right,
Correct?
right. And
So is SLR did not have a soil scientist look at this. The only soil scientist who's looked at this is Mr. McManus, and we're not accepting his take on it. So this is. It seems to me like we're just trying to bleed money out of people, make them spend money and do testing. Well, we have an expert here who is telling us what's going on and what the soil is.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's not accepting what Mr. McManus has shown. That's not true.
You just don't like his observation of it.
No, not at
No,
all.
we're just
That's not
looking
correct.
to get it
Don't speak for
actually
him. That's not
investigated
true.
which it hasn't really been thoroughly investigated
It's
yet.
before the
because no
Wetlands
testing
Commission
was
now.
done.
We need to examine it.
And in addition
That's
to
it.
that, there are other things that we would like to look at as a commission, including a site plan, so that we can get a look at what's actually going on here before we approve it.
And we're focusing on this 2-foot section.
I'm not.
As a
I'll be
piece.
honest, I'm not looking at the 2-foot section. You know, that's not a major thing. Don't get me wrong, it's a wetland that has to be addressed.
You could fill that today
But
if you want.
my,
No.
I can't make that.
no,
No.
no, it has to be looked at,
Just
but
kidding.
No,
we're being advised, we have to look at the off-site wetland being in the upland review area. That's what I'm looking at. But if we're gonna review it, I would like SLR to get a soil scientist out there to take a soil sample to tell me it's a wetland, a 2-foot by 2-foot.
so you would like his peer reviewed by,
Yes,
Or Madam Chair, I can bring the commission out and I can dig 2 holes and prove everything that you need to prove.
well, I don't know.
I'd rather see that happen than us spend more money. I mean, how much is SLR's review cost the taxpayers? If Mr. Draper's expert is willing to do that, I'd like to see that rather than us spend more taxpayer money on it.
Well, we
well,
do.
a site walk doesn't necessarily give us the information that we need, because none of us are soil scientists.
And that's what
Madam Chair, you've been on enough site walks. You know how I do it. You'll get to the answer.
would the commission want Mr. McManus to join them on the sidewalk if they were to conduct the sidewalk?
Absolutely.
absolutely, yes. If we conduct the site walk though, we got another question. Because again, I'm not focusing on this 2-foot section, okay? I'm focusing on now that I'm told I have to worry about the upland review off of this one. I would like that other one flagged. Now, how do you flag that other one? The builder cannot go on that property unless he has permission.
Right, so
So who's
that,
gonna flag that?
so that wetlands was already, the location for that wetlands was already delineated in that source report from Mr. Sanford.
It's flagged.
But,
I would have,
but the applicant soil scientist hasn't had an opportunity to review his flagging, to make my own assessment of how wet it is and where the boundary lies.
One other thing, Pat.
Good.
Why he just said he didn't get to see the boundaries. Also, that supposed flagging was done by GPS coordinates, but are not 100%
So-
correct, with no surveying done of property lines.
So
So that might not even be, my property might not even be within the 100
Might
foot
be, it'd
radius.
probably be a good idea to go ahead and get it flagged and surveyed.
yes,
My property is,
So-
I've done my due diligence.
that's why I'm saying
it's
I
not
would like
flagged.
SLR to go out and flag that, but now you got, this is the whole thing of looking at different property. Do we have the right to go on that person's property now and say, we're gonna
No.
flag your wetlands now.
So this is where you always acquire consent from the property owner to access the property.
And that's what that's what I'm saying. We need that before we do the site walk.
That's correct.
And it needs to be flagged. So that property owner has to consent to SLR going on their property and flagging the wetlands.
We have to
So
request it,
let me go through the Matthew Sanford report to see if the
And then
photographs
Pat,
indicate.
I would like my soil scientist to review his work.
That's good.
I think you would,
Yeah, we have access to it.
agree
I don't know
that's
why you wouldn't.
that's a,
And,
okay.
and I still don't believe in the GPS positioning. There was no surveying done.
That's why I would like
Every
to-
plan that comes in front of a commission, whether it's wetlands or planning and zoning, has to be certified by a survey company.
Understood, and that's what we're
And
discussing.
this was not done.
That's what I'm
And
And
asking.
that's what opened up this whole can of worms with 125 and
And
123.
then that's why I'm
We're all
asking-
on the same page. That
We're
is
on the
what
same
we are
page.
discussing right now, is doing exactly that.
Yes.
So we are not arguing with you. We are in agreement.
I'm not arguing with you either. I'm just stating a point and a fact. That's all.
Understood. Noted.
So before we could schedule a public hearing, before we can do anything, we need to get permission from that neighbor for SLR to go out there and flag the wetlands.
Okay,
And
okay,
identify the wetlands.
okay.
Now, I would think if the applicant has concerns or disputes this information, that they have some kind of access, be it with us or the staff
that
or
would-
police, to be able to as well have access to understand and review.
If the applicant wants town staff to facilitate the permissions that are necessary to access that property, staff would be happy to
That's
facilitate
what I'm
that.
asking. Thank you.
If the applicant wants to approach the property owner directly for permission, they can do that as well. So
No,
that's at their discretion
Absolutely.
for how they want to get consent to
So
access
just to
the
be
property.
clear, would you like the town to facilitate that? Or
Yes.
If you could, we appreciate it.
Very good.
Or the town, I should say.
And if they do that, is it gonna be flagged ahead of time?
It
We always
needs to
ask
be
for the
flagged
flag
prior
before
to
we
it
have
being
the
out
site
there.
walk.
Correct. I
Yes.
just wanna make sure. I
Yes,
just wanna
it makes no sense for you to go
clarification.
out there and,
Nope.
Yep.
And who's gonna do a survey? Who's being
I'm
hired to
asking
survey that?
SLR to flag the,
Like the
wetlands.
wetlands, well, who's gonna survey where the wetlands are compared to where the property lines are? GPS is not accurate down to 25 feet.
Steve, who would be appropriate for us to ask to flag and survey the property?
flagging survey.
Those are two separate
It's two different things.
Well, the property lines are marked, right?
No, my property line's marked. I don't know if anybody
Jim,
else's property
Jim,
lines
is
are marked.
it?
But it needs to have a licensed surveyor by the state of Connecticut to say, this is where a flag is, this is where Mr. Draper's property line is. And if it's less than 100 feet,
So can SLR, and I don't know the answer to this.
That is a question I can raise with
Can
SLR.
they
if they
plant a
can-
flag on your property that shows 20 or 100 feet from that wetland?
only if they have a surveyor doing it, licensed by the state of Connecticut.
Can you find that out if that's something SLR can do as well?
Yes, yes.
I mean, just one flag on your property so we understand.
Closest to closest wetland to my property line.
Yeah. No,
I don't believe I honestly, I can't say yes or no. I don't have a good track record with
Is it line of sight
SLR.
or the hill?
Pardon?
Is it line of sight or is it,
I don't even know where it's at.
The regulations.
I wasn't sure if it's flat over there or woods.
It slopes down.
Otherwise, you said the
So
slopes or something like
west
that.
side.
It slopes from my property going down. Because the way 302 comes around to 58, it's not a 90-degree where you
Okay.
think it is.
Right.
It actually is
I
more.
just think there's questions on the wetland, the applicant has questions they need to be able to review, we need to be able to review as well to have a firm understanding. The 2-foot section, that has to be addressed, but again, that's not,
It's a piece of the puzzle. We need
It's a
to look
piece
at
of
all
the puzzle.
pieces.
the thing that I'm focusing on is that we have to focus on the off-site wetland and the 100 review that's hitting your,
This does set a precedent though now.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree.
Because the two that he brought up, one obviously was mine. 9 Good Hill. This is not the first time that this always comes
That's the
up.
one with the 2
There-
buildings like this, that's what I'm thinking, yes. Okay.
There are others that, there are other applications where there have been similar circumstances for wetlands being located off of the property and the upland review area extending onto the applicant's property.
Oh, I'm not,
Those two that I mentioned
are just,
were the first that came to mind of many.
I'm
They are
not,
not necessarily the only one.
I'm not disputing you, Dave, and that's why I asked on
Sure.
the application, does it state if the wetlands on the property or if it's 100 foot of any wetland? Because that's a difference to me. Because if it says, if it's on the property, that's different than 100 feet from any wetland. Then you look at any wetland, and I will tell you, going forward, if that's the case, I will be asking that specific question, every
The
application.
definition under our regulations of the upland review area is the area of land within 100 feet measured horizontally from the boundary of any wetland or water.
I don't dispute that, but
So it is possible
Yes.
that in these cases that David brought up, I would
Right.
imagine in this case that we're talking
Right.
about tonight, and perhaps in others, it was brought to the commission's attention by an abutter.
absolutely,
And if information is given to us,
we gotta use. I agree
absolutely, we
100%.
would be,
Absolutely, that's why I
I
voted in
understand,
favor, but I will be asking
fair enough.
standard questions going forward, that's all.
Right, so then the question becomes, is it the applicant's job to determine whether or not it's
Thank
within
you.
that area or not? And I don't know the answer to that, and maybe that's a question moving forward, but it's not necessarily relevant to tonight, because what you're talking about is
Agreed.
That's
how
a,
we address
that's our
this in the
regulation.
future.
It's a whole.
Understood, but
other-
how we gather that information is a very relevant and important
Yeah,
conversation.
for this town, you're 100 feet from any
Understood.
tunnel.
But at this moment, we do have the information and we are going
Yes,
to
and
address
we
it
need
because
to
it was
address
brought to
it,
us.
yes.
Fair.
Agreed.
Okay, yes.
So you have to figure out.
I'm in
Yeah.
favor of us doing this expeditiously to,
Yes.
I'm sure that the
So
applicant
when,
would like that, yes?
so when does the commission want to conduct a site walk of the property?
You can't.
Or the properties? Right, but if I have a date, then I can go back to SLR and say, this is when the commission wants to attempt to schedule a site walk. Is it possible for that site walk to be held
Okay. Yep.
pursuant to that property being flagged? And if that's not the case, then I will go back to the commission and say, SLR was not able to perform the flagging. You'll need to, arrange another date for the site walk to take place.
So does it have to be a weekend because of the sunlight?
It's up to you. I will say the land use office closes at 4:30 Monday through Wednesday, 6 on Thursdays and noon on Fridays. I don't know what the commission's schedule is, depending on when you're available and when you would want staff to be present. I will just say some Saturdays will be very difficult for me to attend, unless it's either early or in the afternoon.
So the only time we're thinking then could be a Thursday. I mean, Thursday at 5 o'clock.
Well,
is the only
Thursday's late.
that he's working late.
No,
That's
well,
what I'm saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you want me to be, if you want me to attend the sidewalk during business hours, I can do that.
That's what I'm saying, Thursday. at
So
5.
it's up to you. If I don't,
6:30 on Thursday nights. So it doesn't necessarily have to hinge upon me, but I wouldn't be able to attend. on
I
Thursday.
think we want as many people, there's only 5 of us here, so. Dave, what works for you?
I will say, Fridays would be conducive to my schedule. I don't think they would be conducive for everyone else.
In the evening, yes, not
I could
12 o'clock.
make some Saturdays work, but I understand that's also an encumbrance or an inconvenience for the commission and for the applicant. If another day, Monday through Wednesday or even Thursday, if that works, even though that doesn't work for Madam Chair, I would entertain that as well. It's really up to
I
the
could do
commission.
any day after 5, any Saturday, Sunday, all day.
I can make weekends work, and my schedule varies day to day with how late I am working, but Thursday nights are late nights. That is my night that I am.
Sure. So between now and October 28th, when the public hearing opens, the Saturdays that I am not available are the 5th and the 12th. Otherwise, I could be available for the 19th or the 26th.
I think the 19th is as far, when you get to 26th, when's the public hearing?
The public hearing would open on October 28th. So that would be 2 days
26 is
before.
farthest out to give everyone the information that they need, I would think, or you want to do it the week before? In case there's any follow, I don't think we do follow up from sidewalk, so.
It's been the commission's, for the review process, they normally only attend or conduct one sidewalk of the property.
Right, but I'm saying we usually don't have questions that have to be followed up before the next meeting. It's like,
We would need to have a meeting in between the sidewalk and before we open the process in order to discuss it.
so we could do the 26 without a problem.
Yeah,
That gives far enough
Yeah.
time to mark out everything that be marked out. Right?
I would hope so. I would hope.
Well,
that would,
we're
I would-
hoping.
yes.
If not, we have to push everything.
Yes.
Or do a sidewalk in the middle of a public hearing.
Well, which has also happened
yeah,
for
we've
the
done-
just, yes.
Kevin, with the 26th.
I'm not free either of those weekends. I'm at weddings. Both those weekends. So
Congratulations.
not my own.
Okay,
Lucky you.
all right, so Kevin would not be available those days. Nico, would you be available on those days?
I'm good to go. You guys want to
Okay,
figure it out?
Jay, I'm not sure if you're still there. Would you be available on either of those dates to do a site walk?
I'm trying to pull up my work schedule right now. Come back to me.
Okay. I can make either of them. If we're gonna do a Saturday, and if we're gonna do a weeknight, it will depend on the day and I'll have to open my
What
calendar.
were the dates again?
The 19th and the 26th, I believe.
Those would be the Saturdays where staff would be available to attend.
All right, hold on.
October. Yeah, I'm good. Can't see this.
I'm available the 19th.
Okay, are you available on the 26th?
Yes, 19th or 26th, whatever works.
Okay, I can make both of those days work. Nico said he can make both of those days work.
What time would the commission want the sidewalk to take place?
He said as early as possible is best for you.
No, that would be if we were to do any of the other Saturdays, but for the 19th or the 26th, I could be available anytime.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. is good for me. Kevin, you're not
I'm not here.
available. 9 a.m. is good for me. Nico?
Yep.
Yes, Jay, is 9 a.m. acceptable for you?
Sure.
Okay, 9 a.m.
So, and I just want to be clear, SLR is marking out everything, including the wetland, supposed wetland on Mr. Draper's property.
So
Are we gonna
I
ask-
believe the request from the applicant was for SLR to flag the off-site wetlands on 125 Milwaukee Avenue.
I would like to see them also flag the wetlands on Mr. Draper's. Somehow, we're trying to determine, to make sure that is a wetland or not.
Well, then the applicant would have to grant consent for SLR to perform that.
I've already had my soil scientist do it.
Do you grant permission for our soil scientists?
Well,
to
this
go
would be-
out and
well,
flag it?
I would have to do that since they trespassed on my property the last time.
Keeping it
without
to the
asking.
question at hand, do you do you grant permission for our?
Only
current-
if we're there, only if, so it has to work with our schedule.
So, do we need that? I mean, how does the commission
It's,
member
well,
feel?
it's up to the commission.
Do you need proof it's wetland or non-wetland to address the 2 foot?
No, Mr. McMahon's already, if he identified those wetlands, fine with me.
No one
According to-
has.
According to, right,
Jim did.
I would like to have
Okay.
it looked at because we are getting legal counsel.
And I
from
agree.
Wait, you
I
said
agree.
Mr. McMahon
No one
said
knows if
flag
it's a wetland because it
yours.
looks like a wetland.
No,
Mr.
ask him
McManus.
what Mr. McManus said. From what I understood is, it's too small to flag.
Oh.
That was Mr. McManus's assessment and our attorney
That's why I
is
would like
stating
SLR
that
to flag.
there is no, if it's smaller than this, then it doesn't count. So,
I would like SLR to be able to flag it and get away from a looks like and appear statements.
let's just go ahead
And
and
say
get it.
it
Yeah.
is or it isn't. And again, my main concern isn't that 2 foot section, it's the other section.
So again, I'm gonna ask a question. Is this a new precedent now? So everybody's gonna have an outside engineer, soil scientist flag wetlands on their properties?
Well, the homeowner would be welcome to go ahead and get it flagged also, but your soil.
I already have. I already paid for it.
Didn't,
Madam Chair, I would want to be present because I've already made my decision and he really can't come into the property and just,
To answer your
we
question,
I need to be there. The team needs to be there to review his findings because I want to be able to dispute anything he says if it's outside of what my conclusion's already been.
and the only reason I'm asking is because you got one soil scientist SLR saying it is, and you have.
No, he didn't say yes.
Sorry,
He said it appears and I don't know.
I agree. It appears, and you have another one saying it's not. So I'm looking for the general.
Right. Again, everybody's losing. I didn't say it wasn't. I said it was too small. It does meet the definition, but I don't flag stuff I can step over. It's an inclusion in an otherwise, I've said it again for the 10th time tonight. It's an wetland inclusion in an otherwise upland mapping unit.
Point would consider it a wetland.
We're gonna fill it. Period. We're filling it. It is a wetland and we're filling it, and that's why we're in front of you right now.
Okay, but that's a regulated activity.
Okay,
And
it's a regulated activity and we're here to get a regulated activity approved.
To
All
be
right,
clear,
so then we
that's
need
not
to get
approved right
Why
now.
are we bringing SLR to look at a divot?
Okay,
I mean, come
All
on,
right.
people, let's go.
we'll consider it a wetland. We do not need SLR to flag it or do it. We just need them to flag the other one. If that's how the board feels. I'm gonna consider a wetland for that statement.
I personally.
So if it's a wetland, then I think we need to have it.
Okay, that's fine.
Why are we?
What you're already having a-
money on this and time.
It's only a 2-foot
A
section.
kid's gonna put, some kid will walk in there and put a 50-pound bag of play sand in it for shit's sake. I have
To do.
I have workout equipment that can fill it out in 3 seconds. I
They're
feel as
coming,
though
they're
this
coming to the
is,
property anyway, right? They're
Yeah.
gonna come to the adjacent property to do this.
that's more of a
much
conversation.
money
That's a
extra are we
conversation I'm
talking
willing
about?
to adhere to. You're opening up a can
I-
of
I-
worms, you're setting the precedent. But at the same time, this is a long drawn out conversation
I
that's,
agree with
that's wasting a lot of people's very expensive time.
I think we do address that, but we need to focus on the other wetland and we address a 2-foot wetland in the process.
So what are we asking for? That's what we need to come to.
All
a
I need,
consensus.
in my opinion now, I'm gonna consider that a wetland, but based on Mr. McManus's statement, that's all our statement. I'm gonna consider a 2-foot wetland.
Okay.
All I need SLR, in my opinion, is to flag the wetland on a neighboring property. And we need someone to survey how far that wetland is from the applicant's property line.
And GPS ain't cutting it.
Simple 2 things. If SLR can do it, that's fine, in my opinion, let them do it. If you want to dispute SLR, that's a whole different conversation that's had at that point. If you want to have your own person do it, I'm saying that would be up to you.
Pat, the part I'm getting at is everything has to be done by a certified surveyor
I agree.
by the state of Connecticut.
Right.
They can put a flag there and say, well, yeah,
Right.
hold on a second. Here's my phone. Here's the satellite under the trees.
Right.
Okay. I have Onyx. It's 25 feet long.
And when I
Second
say
property
SLR,
lines.
SLR needs to make sure they use such a flag.
It's got to be a surveyor,
So,
a
yes,
licensed
it's gotta
surveyor
be
by the
so
state
agree.
of Connecticut. That's the only thing that
You-
I, as the applicant, am going to accept.
No, and I agree with you. I
No,
100%
we
agree,
agree,
and
so
we'll
that's
make
what
sure
we're going to do.
SLR gives the just like I asked Mr. McManus, gives the qualifications of who's doing the survey and doing the flag. So everyone will have them that it's certified by the state of Connecticut versus someone like
A
me
surveyor.
who wouldn't know.
So we would like a licensed surveyor, and Dave is in agreement that he can make sure
You
that that
wouldn't
is the
trust
case.
yourself, you wouldn't trust yourself to go and measure?
I can ask SLR.
No, I'm not. I'm not. a
It's
licensed
irrelevant. We're
Right.
gonna get a licensed surveyor out there to do it. We don't need
Yeah,
to
no.
belabor the point.
I,
Yes,
I still, this is Jim McManus. I still would like to be present at the off-site wetland delineation.
And that will be worked out.
Oh,
Right.
Jim, yeah. So the logistics for when that site inspection is made, by whoever from SLR performs it, including a surveyor, that the applicant's experts will be notified so that they can be present for when that information is gathered.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
there, do we need to address the other pieces of the application that we would like at this time?
You should, yes.
Yes, so I would like a detailed site plan for the proposal so that we can
Doing that for the planning
evaluate
and
that.
zoning commission, if they like our
Yeah.
our newest site plan. Want to get their feel for it. You got to remember, I still have an appeal from the original one.
Okay. So we would like
So-
that in order for our review
Yeah.
process as well. do we want a soils report for the 2 foot by 2 foot?
No,
No.
I'm
No.
assuming it's based on conversation, it's a wetland.
But if it's a wetland,
We will address it as a wetland.
okay, so you do not need a soils report to confirm that.
No,
Okay.
no one's disputing that it's a wetland. They're disputing the significance of the
Well,
wetland.
that
To
has to
me,
do with functions and values.
and to me, it's a wetland. That's how I'm gonna address it.
So just to make sure that that the point is being made, the preliminary report that was put up there shows the building
Mhm.
within, it's almost on top of that depression. So it's
I
very, very
anticipate
close
that
to
depression will be
What?
removed and relocated to a different spot.
We can't
mitigated.
remove and move a wetland.
You could actually mitigate a wetland, yes, you can.
Right, but
And it's a
then,
2 foot wetland.
but the applicant would have to show that that's part of their intention to
right.
do that.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Or it gets filled in. So
Okay.
okay.
Did, did the commission make a motion to schedule the site walk?
No.
Let's get all that stuff done, please.
I will entertain a motion to schedule the site walk for what did we want this? You want the 26th? Okay, October 26th at 9 a.m. Saturday
Second.
morning.
second,
And
Motion for
And-
such,
and
for
that-
said, sidewalk.
And just to, and as a point of clarification, that would be for the properties 9 Putnam Park Road,
Yes. and
123 Milwaukee Avenue, and 125 Milwaukee Avenue.
you have to walk through wherever, yes,
Well, if,
yes.
to be clear, 123, isn't where the,
Wetlands,
right, they are
But you
on
walk through it.
they are on 125, that's
That's
correct.
as long as they
If
know
don't
we're
grant us
coming.
Permission, then we'll walk around.
Yes,
But
yes,
yes, yes. So we have the motion by Nico. We have it seconded by Pat. Is that
Second.
what I heard? Okay,
yes,
so
you did.
all in favor. Jay, are you in favor of having the site walk on October?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Nico.
Yes.
Yes. Pat?
Hi, yes.
Abstain.
Abstain because you cannot be there, and I say yes, so the motion carries. All right. So now we want to talk about what things we need brought before us in order to consider this an application that we can review. So I have stated that I would like to see a full building plan. We have stated that we would like the areas to be surveyed by a licensed surveyor and
Inland, wetland delineations made on as well and marked by said surveyor.
so we would like the wetlands to be flagged. They
Both
already are,
wetlands.
or both wetlands to
Both
be flagged.
wetlands.
And we're gonna have SLR do that.
Well, wait, when you say both wetlands,
Well, one of them's already flagged, right? Milwaukee is already flagged. Is
I
that
will, I will
correct?
confirm that there were flaggings placed, and if they were placed, that they are still present. And if they are not, then SLR will have those wetlands that were delineated be reflagged.
Yes,
Okay.
and the one, Mr. Draper property as well, so we can see it while we're there.
Who would perform the flagging on the,
That's what we were going 10 rounds on here. Can we
Right,
have SLR do
right,
that if
SLR.
Mr. Draper gives us permission to have them on his property to flag it? Or can we not?
Do you have a concern with flagging that?
I have concern with
Okay.
SLR, period.
No, I know you, do you have a problem or concern, sorry, with you flagging the wetlands on your property, what's being
Well, that's-
involved?
I
If Jim
believe that's what
McManus
we
can
said.
actually find enough wetlands to flag, I leave it up to my expert.
Okay, is that acceptable to the commission?
That's completely acceptable to me.
I'm fine with that. as
I'm
long as
fine with
Mr.
that.
McManus,
Jay, can you give me a thumb?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, all right, Mr. McManus, would you be available to do that for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
absolutely.
Acceptable?
Yes.
Okay, is there other stuff that we would like to request?
Cookies?
I didn't bring any this time, maybe next time.
I mean, that'll
I
help.
mean, everything that's under.
No, I'm
appendix
good.
B
I'm good.
are-
So what is it that we do not have that you would like to see offered? Because this is the moment to,
I want all the stuff under appendix B, whatever they need to do for the application. I'm not gonna go through it on that. They know what they need to do. You need to do it.
Dave,
I'm looking to see if any
I
of this
would
was not
ask
included
that
in the
We don't
original.
have all of
you
them.
bring any information
So what I do-
on what's required to fill a wetland, or to fill a wetland,
Henry.
so that we're all aware.
Mhm.
Because I know
We don't.
the
need
first
to-
application, I wasn't even on the wetland board yet, but I attended the hearing. A homeowner wanted to fill a 2-foot section, it was 2-foot section of wetland, and it was allowed because they were putting a swing set. And I'm trying to remember, he didn't mitigate, so there must be some allowance to fill such a situation.
Without knowing the circumstance for that application, staff will do their best to investigate.
No, that's what I'm saying. If you just let us know what the process is to fill it or create another 2-foot wetland.
Pat, I just wanted you to remember, there was a swimming pool there.
I understand that.
I just want you to remember that,
I
that's all.
understand that. Yes.
If,
Yep.
if you want staff to provide that clarification during the review when they issue their review comments, that can be done.
Yeah, because I could just see this conversation coming up about this 2-foot. How do we take care of it?
Sure,
I'd
understood,
like to head that up before
understood,
the whole thing. Again, I'm more concerned over the wetland that's offsite.
sure.
Mr. McCollum, are there any other items that you feel would be worthy of a discussion for us to ask to be included in the application?
Not at this time. I believe the commission, if the commission is satisfied with the items that they are requesting the applicant to provide, then staff would have no additional input this time.
Is there anyone else on the commission who would like to request for any other materials to be submitted?
I'm good.
Take now or forever hold your peace.
Just very peaceful. All the information that they're required to submit under things B or any wetlands regulation,
Which I believe has
including all the pertinent information on the site plan listed under Appendix C as well.
Right, so,
Yeah.
so when an embellished site plan, as the applicant is describing, they're going to prepare,
Yeah, we need a
is
full-on-
submitted,
Yeah.
right, then that will be reviewed by myself and the other appropriate experts, and
Make sure everything's
comments based on the commission's checklists and other pertinent items will be provided accordingly.
perfect.
excellent. Thank you.
Right.
All right, then have we voted on all appropriate measures for this application?
So
Yeah.
it's a public hearing,
Yep.
over October 28th,
Yep.
sidewalk scheduled for October 26th, 9 a.m. 9 Putnam Park Road, 123 and 125 Milwaukee Ave.
Did we vote on the 28th? I know that we were all. we just-
No, it's their normal, for,
Amanda,
For-
did we vote on that?
Public hearing.
Public hearing on the 28th?
I don't believe so. You voted that you wanted to hold a public hearing, but you didn't vote on which day to hold it.
Thank you. So I will entertain a motion to hold the open the public hearing on October 28th at our next regularly scheduled Inland Wetlands Commission meeting. Someone could say so moved,
Second, so move.
and someone could say,
Second.
thank you. Jay, we're voting
Yep.
on the table? Yes. Nico?
Yeah.
Aye.
Yes.
Uh,
Unanimous, motion passes. Okay.
Backtrack one thing to what we're asking of the applicant to bring.
Yes.
I mean, it's here, but just in case, any other information, section appendix B, 8, or no, under section 9, any other information the commission deems necessary to understanding what the applicant is proposing. Just in regards to the wetland in question is the wetland that's supposedly within 100 feet of, upland review area. It's off site. It wasn't really why they came here tonight, why the applicant came here tonight, as I understand. They wanted to just deal with the man-made hole. There's other issues at play that need to be addressed. So I want to make sure that on the, the engineering act and site plans that we have all the deep test hole information to determine the movement of the groundwater on that site to make the determinations that we need.
as part of the site plan, you ask for a site plan, and then.
I just want to make sure that that's not forgotten, because maybe they didn't have this wetland in mind before. Now it
It's
is.
still a site plan, you're still just looking for a site.
Zero
looking for a site
increase in
plan with an
runoff.
inland-
It's a
with the
state
delineation of
mandate.
the upland review area.
Good, just checking. She said I'd make clear.
Yeah,
what we need,
yeah.
so.
Is there any interest in having this peer review before we move on to the next item on the agenda? Is that what SLR would be?
SLR is the town's engineering consultant, and they provided a soil scientist service. If you wanted to have
Yes.
SLR conduct a or if you wanted to have someone conduct a peer review, you would want to explicitly state who that was. I would have to confirm if SLR would be available to perform that. And if not, then I would have to figure out who would be and then broach that to the commission.
So if you're in the room,
I'd be in favor of some peer review who discusses groundwater movement on slopes such as this.
okay, so Nico says yes.
Everything about that we possibly do.
Do you have any interest in pursuing that? Feeling the room. I'm sorry, Jay, did you hear me?
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, I don't.
Thank you. Pat?
So if a peer review is to be done, I would like it be done besides SLR, just because there come in question
Integrity.
that way.
Right.
I'm not gonna say.
But it would be
integrity,
done by somebody else.
But
Yeah.
I'm not sure what
Of
Nico is
wetlands,
asking.
another wetland
Water
source.
flows the way the contour lines underground. They could tell you by the contour lines how it's going. I don't think anyone's digging deep holes to like a septic test. The deep holes you were looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, they're septic holes. That's a different science than the way water's flowing off the property underground. It has something to do with contour lines, the way the water flows underground. I'm not sure. I'm not a scientist.
But also
I remember we had
the
asked that once before in another application, but I don't believe there's anyone who's gonna sit there and dig you holes to tell you how the water's flowing.
And I would
Peer
not
review
spend
means it's
tax
an
dollars.
independent person who reviews our findings and the
That's fine.
applicant's
Right,
scientific.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want
Science.
to
Yes.
double check.
right. So
fine.
it is an
We're gonna spend the
expert.
tax revenue. That's what's supposed to happen. So that's what we'll do.
Do you would like to have that? Jay says no.
Yes.
You would like to have a peer review?
Yes.
The applicant doesn't have to
Yes.
be in this all alone. We can.
Let me clarify.
We're beating it to death line.
We're gonna run out of horse to beat.
Okay.
Now, this has come up in the past that we didn't ask this question.
That's
So
why I
I'm
said
trying
yes.
to be,
Okay.
Yes. No,
So-
good
Chair,
question.
So-
can I ask for a quick recess for 5 minutes if he's mentioned?
you may, can you
What's
wait a
yours?
moment for him to
Oh,
close out
I
the
thought
question?
that
If
he
you
was
cannot,
reading, so I was gonna do that while you were.
Right, so
You could
the
wait.
the peer reviews that the commission has asked for in the past, they have used the Northwest Conservation Districts. I don't know if they are available for that service. I would have to ask. And they have done that. That peer review has been performed using a special project review fee where the commission may impose on the applicant special project review fees where additional technical assistance is required to evaluate an application submitted in accordance with these regulations. And so if you are going to ask for that, you would have to state why you are asking for that and what you are asking them to review.
so Nico has said that he would be interested in that from the perspective of groundwater movement. Is that a valid
So,
reason to go?
so are you asking someone to conduct groundwater tests or just to review the application based on the paperwork that was submitted or concerns for impacts to groundwater?
There are concerns for impacts to groundwater, so I want those concerns addressed by a third party.
Right, but do you want them with physical tests or do you want them based on the paperwork that's been
I
submitted?
don't know. Why don't we leave that up to the person doing the professional? Shouldn't we?
Well, it's the commission's the one that has to ask.
So can we leave it open as an option to use them? Like, once we get into the public hearing, if the only reason I'm looking to use something like that is because SLR and the applicant have difference of opinion
Okay.
that to use it, okay, but which is
So you're
fine.
looking to bring a neutral party.
So-
in.
Bring that
Great
neutral
to avoid
party
that.
in and
That's
figure it out.
irrelevant. I don't care.
That's
Okay,
the only
so
reason I
so
would say.
how
Otherwise-
about the commission considers it this way? That in the instance that there is continued disagreement between what the
Thank you.
applicant and or SLR may produce for their reports, the commission has discretion in the future to ask for a peer review to be conducted.
Perfect.
I'd be in
That's good with
favor
me.
of that.
I'm not sure.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
That's
we're
what
just saying we
Nico's-
need to know exactly.
We don't need a
like,
motion for that.
what to ask them.
Well-
You want us to say,
Well,
we know, I want you to
should
dig
have-
here, 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 here.
I'm sorry, Nico?
You were saying we need to specifically specify
Well,
to
well,
the Northwest
well,
Conservation
so-
District.
We will if we choose.
What
to
I'm,
use it.
what I'm asking for clarification on is,
Yeah.
so you can have someone peer review the application based on just the paperwork. Or you can have someone actually go out, perform a site investigation
I want
based
them on
on,
the sidewalk with us.
you want them on the sidewalk.
Yes.
I think we're overkilling it.
Yeah, you're,
Quite honestly, we're
No,
beating
you-
like
That's okay, you can walk
I
out.
want a peer review,
I-
a
I'm
third
thinking
party,
of-
another person on the sidewalk with us. Not just Jim. I want Jim there too. I want,
You
So
want
someone
out
there
and out,
that they're
everyone
not
there.
gonna,
I would vote against.
you know,
Okay.
be against. Why?
Kevin?
We need.
no.
Okay,
we've-
I'm
we
gonna-
have-
I'm
we
gonna
have- we have
take a
not-
while.
We have not opted for third party
I-
peer reviews. Past has been a mistake in recent.
You already have a third party with SLR. The only reason I
Well,
want them is
so-
if there's a
So
disagreement. between all
SLR
the
is not a
parties.
third
Okay.
party,
Right, me too.
SLR is,
It's the
SLR.
town.
No, I understand that. The only reason I want the third party is that the two parties can't equal. I want the third party to advise me on what's,
Me too.
that's it.
Through, and we pay the Northwest Conservation District $2600
Not for that.
a year as our consultant.
Right,
But that money
that's a
doesn't
retainer
go,
fee.
that's different. We don't.
that fee does not
That's
cover,
Yeah, that's like classes and stuff like that. Has nothing to
that,
do with
that
this.
fee does not cover.
Right.
They're performing their peer review for this.
And
specific-
I'll say straight out, that peer review fee gets passed out to the applicant, correct?
That's
And I think
what
at this
I-
point,
that's
this
what I just-
applicant has done a lot coming here, and I don't want to impose any more fees on an applicant unless it's necessary to come to an agreement on something, and I don't see that being necessary at this point. I would like to leave it open for the future, but if that's not the case, I would vote against it.
Kevin said he would not be in favor. I would be in agreement with Pat. Jay?
I'm not in favor of that, no.
Why don't we pay for it if we're the ones asking for it?
Because we're already paying for SLR at an extreme taxpayer expense.
Okay, so
But if that's the wrong group, if this developer applicant is deemed that their information is wrong or irrelevant or lies or whatever it is, then we need somebody else, right?
So what we're talking about, Nico, is leaving the option on the table. Should we get into a situation where the applicant is not in agreement with the town's experts? That's the word I've been grabbing.
But I don't necessarily want to push the burden onto the applicant.
Okay, so we're not there yet.
Okay.
So what we're talking about is not involving a peer, what,
So it's safety issues.
I'm gonna circle back to taking a leak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go, let him go.
All right.
Yep, give him time.
Like,
go ahead.
thank you.
But we have to close the conversation
Yes.
for a moment, so.
Adjourn, you gotta make a motion. to
Make-
adjourn.
Manager.
Well, no, you want a motion to, recess, to go to recess.
I make a motion to
for a quick
recess.
recess.
Second,
Motion.
Jay.
say aye.
Say aye, Renee?
Aye.
Jay?
Sure.
Okay, aye. Okay,
Aye for the-
recess for 5 minutes. We'll return at
I won't need 5
9:20.
minutes.
No discussing.
Okay. Amanda, can you pause recording, please?
Very, very.
Dave, should I stick around or should I take?
No, you're good.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
good night.
To resume.
So I just need to state that the time that the
Okay.
meeting is,
The meeting is resumed at 9:27 PM. Done?
Done.
Perfect. All right, I believe that we are finished with our new business unless I have missed something.
no,
Okay.
you are.
So we can move on.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you very much,
Jay.
Mr. Draper. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from, where's my
I make a
binder?
motion that we accept the regular meeting minutes from 7/22/24.
Second?
Second.
I can't.
That's right.
Second. Okay, Jay, are you with us? Okay, Nico, yay or nay?
Yes.
Yes, I say yes.
I'm back. Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, actually, I believe you probably need to abstain. I don't think you were at that meeting. Is that correct?
No, I was not.
Okay. Yes?
I abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay, you and I, and,
Yep.
okay, so we have 3 ayes and 2 abstentions, I believe.
That's correct.
Motion passes. Oh, I shouldn't have any discussion. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
I don't
No.
want to talk about that one.
Okay, done. All right, now we are up to staff reports. And this is where we wanted to insert an update on 7 Rockwell Road.
Yes.
The update is,
All for me.
the update is for 7 Rockwell Road. do not have anything scheduled yet, and we are waiting for Attorney Andress to notify when a schedule to appear has been filed with the Danbury Superior Court. And when that happens, I will let you know.
So we're waiting on the court,
That's correct.
not the applicant. Okay,
That's correct.
or the owner.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there more staff reports to report? Staff?
There's some aquifer protection notices for the application of aquatic pesticides. There were a slew of those. Nothing to report on those. There were some agent approvals that I issued pursuant to the heavy rain event that we had on August 18th through 19th. I am still ongoing through that process. If there is anything else I need to update on, I will let you know when it's not 9:30 at night.
It's early.
As for, may I look on your agenda?
You had 7 Rockwell Road, you
Yep.
had
No,
flooding events.
that's all I've got. That's all I've got.
Okay. Commission comments. Inland wetlands regulations, review and discuss. Do we wish to discuss this tonight?
So I will give you guys some food for thought from Rodrigo Pinto of the Housatonic Valley Authority Association.
Did he get back to you?
He did get back to me, and we don't necessarily have to discuss this tonight, but I think it's food for thought for next time as to whether or not or as to who the commission will want to bring into the discussion. We can certainly talk about this more at the commission's next meeting or any other meetings where it may be more appropriate to do so.
About restaffing.
No, this is, so there was a inquiry for which expert would be most appropriate to discuss riparian buffers and native plants with the commission. And Mr. Pinto doesn't think he's the most appropriate to do that unless you want to wait until January of next year. And in the interim, he has recommended I reach out to some other folks through Westcog and through I believe that's Charles Vittich from Westcog, and then some other experts from the state and from the Yukon Extension Program.
And does he want us to take a look at the Still River Watershed Management Plan as well? It sounds like.
Yeah, he highlights that on the basis of looking at its implementation process.
Yeah, that's our reading materials.
I believe that is already.
Is it up there?
I believe it's already in there.
Oh, great.
But I will confirm if it is not, I will have it be added.
I just want to check here when we're talking about this. Just about our own regulations. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm even having trouble finding, just as a sidebar we can talk about later, like where does it talk about the 100-foot upland review area here? Because I have a very strong feeling, I know that in the Connecticut general statutes, it talks about the upland review area being a, like, not necessarily strictly defined thing. Like it has to do with slopes of the land sometimes and the ability of the ground, the soils to absorb water. It's not as cut and dry as we'd like.
Right. The parameters or how the commission defines an upland review area, they can go as low as 50 feet. They can go as high as 500. And based on the area conditions that are within town, the environmental resources that are inventory here, the commission has to find a number or settle on a number that's appropriate to use consistently for what they believe constitutes the extent of a URA. And
But you could also add in like caveats, like we were reading under some of our resources there, that like if you have a certain critical watershed or something like that.
Right.
You
So if you
could have a certain area of the town that has like a different, that is treated differently under our regulations.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So for larger resources in other municipalities, the upland review area extends further away. For vernal pools, I believe here in the town of Bethel, that extends that's well beyond 100 feet. I don't have the number off the top of my head. I don't know why 500 comes to mind. but
I don't even see that stuff in our regulations, any of this, like, actually.
Right,
Where-
so,
where is this?
so if the commission wants staff to locate where those numbers explicitly come from, I would be happy to do that. I believe, these regulations were modeled in the spirit of the state's model regulations,
Mhm.
which use those numbers. So it's just implied that we are using what the state has provided, but if you want me to explicitly find out where those numbers come from, I'd be happy to do that.
But in the meantime, also, I would encourage everybody, if you guys have a chance, there was something in one of the things that I provided that's in the Google Drive that does talk about what are upland review areas. It was a,
Yes,
it was a federal
Yes.
government document
there were some, yes,
or state DEP.
right, from the NRCS, I believe, and from the Penn State Extension for riparian buffers. Those resources, I have a Google Drive or a Google Doc that I share with you all that I continue to update and have at your disposal whenever you want to take a look at it. So
I wonder, thank you, if
You're welcome.
if we might want to craft some sort of wording in our own regulations that like accounts for the variability of the land sometimes and the movement of water to give us legal wiggle room if we choose to, if we need to, as a commission, if we decide that it warrants that if in the rare situation where like say something just goes beyond 100 feet,
Yeah.
but we know that this water is going down to that spot to the north of the brook.
and I
maybe
think
then we have that legal reach if we choose to need it. If we need it under in a certain site circumstance.
and that's
which we
where
don't have right now.
yeah, and that's where I think
And yeah,
some of the insight that Mr. Vittich or some of the other experts that are available at the resources that Mr. Pinto provided, I can certainly reach out to them and see when they would be available to discuss that with you, because I think that would be appropriate before the commission really dived into possibly modifying the language and then getting someone involved to actually propose a text amendment to the regs and where that text amendment would be inserted to appropriately address how you want the spirit of the regs to change.
So I'm going to speak for myself, and we'll see if this resonates with anybody else. The idea of changing the regulations or adjusting them or reviewing them and updating them, I think is a fantastic idea. I feel personally very overwhelmed with the idea of that task because I don't have my arms around it.
Sure.
And I don't feel like the more we sort of a little bit here and there kind of dip our toe in and talk about this and talk about that, it's a disconnected conversation.
Sure.
And it's not helping me to gain any clarity, nor do I think it's helping us as a commission to create a roadmap for how we're going to do this.
Sure.
So what I would like to propose are a couple things for you guys to consider whether this works for you or not is number one, it's 9:30. So I don't think that we should be delving into this in any great depth in this moment.
And
I don't think
even with
anybody-
you guys another time.
I
too,
understood.
like, if it's a daytime, I don't
Understood.
care, but-
Well, I can't do that,
Whatever.
but regardless, I think it would be fantastic if our first step here is to identify whether or not we have a lull coming up in the near future, which we usually do in the winter months, correct, Dave? No, that's when things start to ramp up because that's when we get before the spring. Okay, well, so if we don't have a lull to work with, then I think that we need to divide up this task in a concrete way and say the first thing we're going to look at is this particular thing.
Right.
And then we're going to gather information to look at that
One thing
particular
at a
thing.
time.
Correct, because we just aren't going to make any headway doing it this way.
Right.
So Nico is in agreement. Pat, what, do you have thoughts on that?
I just think I'm not an expert to be changing any of these
Well,
things,
that's
so
why we want to bring
we're gonna
experts
call
in,
them
but
in.
again, I think we need to like,
I agree, you can't do it on the whole book,
One thing.
one thing at a time.
So the only two things that are on my radar right now are this potential upland review area situation. I think there's holes in our like the implementation of our regulations there that we can make better, and possibly also I think there's holes or we're missing something in the idea of like what clear cutting is and
I think there are
deforesting
many
in a
things that
riparian-
you've brought up that you would like us to
I know,
consider
but I
whether
wanna
or not.
focus too and make it
Okay.
easier for all.
Well, I think that's great.
Otherwise, I'm not. I also want to be focused.
May I?
on anything done.
Yep, absolutely.
So
These are our regs.
what else?
You have a lot of good thoughts, but they don't seem compartmentalized when you try to bring them to the forefront is the issue. If I could just make a personal recommendation and take, that's what it is. You're very uncategorized when you want to get it out and I see that when you speak. But I would say if there's something of particular concern for you is to actually take some personalized time and put it down on paper. So that way, when you come to speak of it, it's already pre-registered for you so you can speak clearly on what you're trying to say. Because there's a lot up there.
Providing the resources.
Yeah.
But it's still a
there's lot
large
up there, it's
volume
just
of
not coming out clearly.
information for us to try to wrap our heads around.
And I don't have a lot of time to read it.
Exactly. And
No,
we're all,
me too.
volunteers here and have lots of other
Oh, I don't
responsibilities
think I
outside
have
of
a
the
right
commission.
place.
And we have a responsibility to the commission.
Yeah, I'll try to make something succinct and then share it with.
Well, maybe it would make
you
sense
guys.
to start going from the beginning through and when you hit a bump, where there's a bump is not the right word, but a flag for something that you feel would be appropriate for us to address.
Okay.
Does that make sense to start
Yes,
going through it in
just
an
to
orderly
see-
fashion?
Yes.
Using
Okay.
our regs, as the model.
Yes, using our current regs as the model. And if you have other regulations that you're looking at that have things that you think are important for us to consider that apply to that section, anybody, not just Nico, then bring it
Yeah.
to the meeting where we're going to discuss that section. And then perhaps if, correct me because I may be off base with this, but perhaps if we're able to draft some of the things based on resources that we have available to us online, in paper format, through trainings, if we're able to craft some things that we think are appropriate, I feel like that's a better use of time when we're bringing in experts to say, okay, we've done our due diligence. This is a framework of what we're thinking about trying to implement. Can you give us some guidance on whether or not these are appropriate things to implement or suggestions for how we could make them better?
That's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
That is well spoken.
Thank you. All right, so then are we in agreement? We don't need a vote on this. Are we in
That's not
general
yes.
agreement that this would be a good model? Okay, yes?
Yes.
So then for
Awesome.
our next meeting, Nico, can I task you, since you seem to be spearheading this, which I think is wonderful, and everyone else is invited to do the same if you have time and so choose to start reading through here and flag a section? Maybe let Dave know what section you want to talk about in our next meeting
Yeah.
and we can save that for this portion of the meeting.
I'll
and try
share
and
it
have
with
a
him and he
focus.
can share it with you guys on that.
Great.
Perfect.
Would it be possible for you to do that well in advance of the meeting as opposed to the Friday before, which I know is when you usually communicate stuff with us, but just to give us enough time to.
For these regulations and for the commission's resources, that gets updated, as information is brought. If the commission wants to be notified of when that happens, I can certainly.
I
I'm
would
with you
love
guys.
that.
It would help me.
I'm
Thank you.
getting through reading all the information. that we
Yes,
put
it's a
there, too.
large volume, which I very much appreciate you compiling for us. That's wonderful. I'm sure that took a lot of time and effort and work and
Yeah.
and it
You're
did.
welcome.
And
And credit also goes to Nico
absolutely,
because
both
he's
of you.
been,
Yep.
he's been.
But it's a little disjointed. I understand what you're saying.
And I think you have the best, I think everyone has the best of
Streamlining it.
intentions.
That's perfect.
But let's try and, if we're gonna do something, let's try and do it in an organized fashion. Cool? All right,
We good?
good. More commission comments?
I have one. Public hearing, they're gonna use the sign.
Yes.
Any, thank you.
More commission comments?
Not.
Okay, moving on to public comments. Would anyone from the public like to make a statement tonight or address anything? No one is here. Amanda, do we have anyone who is in Cyberland?
I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay, it looks like there is no one in attendance or no one who wishes to comment, so I'm going to close that section of the meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:42 p.m.
Motion to adjourn to 9:42 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jay?
Yeah, hi.
Aye. Nico says aye, I say aye, Kat says aye,
Aye.
Kevin
We're
says
all
aye,
ayes.
all unanimous, all right. Oh,